They called her the Ghost Girl, the billionaire's daughter who vanished after the fire that destroyed half her face. For 3 years, Maeve Collins lived in shadows, convinced the world would never see past her scars. Then came the day a single father with calloused hands and kind eyes changed everything. In a crowded cafe where strangers recoiled in horror, Noah Reyes did the unthinkable. He reached out and held her hand. This is their story. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey travels. The winter morning broke cold and merciless over Portland, Oregon, the kind of February day where the sky hung low and gray, pressing down on the city like a weight. Inside Riverside Cafe, the air smelled of burnt coffee and cinnamon rolls. The windows fogged with condensation from too many bodies crowded into too small a space. It was the kind of place where regulars knew each other's orders, where the barista called out names with familiarity, where life moved in comfortable, predictable rhythms. Until the door opened and everything stopped. Maeve Collins stood in the threshold, 20 years old and trembling like a leaf in a storm. Her right hand gripped the door handle so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her left hand clutched the strap of a worn leather bag against her ribs as if it were a shield. She wore a charcoal gray coat that had probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, but it hung on her frame like she was disappearing inside it. Dark hair fell across the right side of her face in carefully arranged waves, a deliberate curtain, but it wasn't enough to hide what the fire had done. The scars started at her temple, spreading down across her cheek like twisted tree roots, pulling the corner of her eye slightly downward, distorting the line of her jaw. The skin was mottled, shiny in places, textured in others, a landscape of survival etched permanently into flesh. 3 years ago, the flames had taken more than her appearance. They'd taken her voice, her confidence, her belief that she belonged anywhere people could see her. The cafe's warmth hit her face, and with it came the stares. A woman in yoga pants stopped mid-sentence, her mouth forming a small O of shock. 2 college students at a corner table looked up from their laptops, then quickly away, then back again with morbid curiosity they couldn't quite suppress. A businessman in a pressed suit actually took a step backward, his morning newspaper crinkling in suddenly tense fingers. A toddler in a high chair pointed, and her mother's hand shot out to redirect the gesture, pulling her daughter's arm down with a whispered, harsh, "Don't." Maeve felt it all, every glance like a physical touch, every whisper like a needle under her skin. Her therapist's voice echoed in her head. You have to start somewhere. One small step, one public place. You can't hide forever. But Dr. Harrison didn't understand. She couldn't understand. She had smooth, unblemished skin and could walk into a cafe without becoming the center of a horror show. I can't do this, Maeve whispered to herself, the words barely audible. Her hand released the door handle, ready to flee back to the safety of her car, back to the isolation of her father's estate, where mirrors were covered and visitors were carefully screened. That's when she heard the chair scrape against hardwood floor. Across the cafe, past the cluster of shocked faces and suspended conversations, a man stood up. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'10", with shoulders that spoke of manual labor and a posture that suggested bone-deep exhaustion. His work shirt was navy blue, with an oil stain on the left sleeve and a name patch that read Noah in faded red thread. His jeans were worn at the knees, his boots were scuffed. He looked like someone who worked with his hands, who knew what it meant to be tired, who understood that life could grind you down until you were just trying to survive one more day. Noah Reyes didn't look away. While everyone else in that cafe had flinched or stared or pretended not to see, he simply looked at Maeve with dark eyes that held something she hadn't seen in years. Not pity, not shock, not revulsion. Just recognition. As if he saw a person, not a tragedy. And then he started walking toward her. The cafe seemed to hold its collective breath. Someone's phone clattered onto a table. The espresso machine stopped hissing. Even the indie folk music playing through the speakers seemed to fade into background static. Maeve's first instinct was to run. Her second was to pull her hair further across her face. Her third was to simply freeze, which is what she did, rooted to the spot like a deer in headlights as this stranger crossed the room with steady, unhurried steps. "Hey," Noah said when he reached her, his voice low and rough around the edges, like someone who didn't waste words. "You're looking for a place to sit?" Maeve couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. She managed a tiny nod, barely perceptible. "There's a good table by the window," Noah continued, as casual as if they were old friends, as if half the cafe wasn't watching this interaction with fascinated horror. "I was just leaving, but it's got the best light this time of morning. Gets warm without being too hot. Good spot." He extended his hand, calloused palm up, fingers relaxed, no pressure, just an offering. Maeve stared at that hand like it was a foreign object. When was the last time someone had voluntarily touched her? Her father's grip on her shoulder at the hospital, mechanical and distant. Dr. Harrison's professional handshakes. The nurse who changed her bandages. Always clinical. Always necessary. Never kind. "I don't bite," Noah added, and there was the smallest hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Not mocking, not performative, just gentle. Promise. Later, Maeve wouldn't be able to explain what made her do it. Maybe it was the exhaustion of 3 years spent hiding. Maybe it was the quiet steadiness in this stranger's eyes. Maybe it was simply that she was so tired of being afraid. She lifted her trembling left hand and placed it in his. Noah's fingers closed around hers, warm, solid, real. Not too tight, not pulling away, just holding on. "There you go," he said softly. "That's the hard part done." He turned, still holding her hand, and began walking toward the window table he'd indicated. The crowd parted like water, people moving their chairs back, creating a path. Maeve followed, her legs moving mechanically, her entire world narrowed to the feeling of his hand around hers and the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. When they reached the table, Noah pulled out a chair for her, an old-fashioned gesture that would have seemed ridiculous from anyone else, but from him felt simply decent. Maeve sank into it, her legs finally giving out. "Coffee or tea?" Noah asked, still standing. I can't." Maeve's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "You can," Noah said matter-of-factly. "You just did. Hardest thing in the world is walking through that door. Everything else is easy by comparison. So, coffee or tea?" "Tea," Maeve managed. "Chamomile, if they have it." "They do." "Honey?" She nodded. "Be right back." Noah walked to the counter, leaving Maeve alone at the table. Slowly, gradually, the cafe began to resume its normal rhythm. Conversations picked back up, though they were quieter now, more subdued. People still glanced her way, but the initial shock had passed. They returned to their phones, their newspapers, their own concerns. Maeve sat very still, her hands clasped in her lap, trying to process what had just happened. A stranger had seen her at her most vulnerable and hadn't looked away, hadn't treated her like a tragedy or a spectacle, had simply helped. She turned her head slightly, watching Noah at the counter. He was talking to the barista, a young woman with purple hair and multiple ear piercings who kept glancing past him toward Maeve. Noah said something that made the barista look up at him instead, her expression shifting from curiosity to something softer. When he returned, he carried 2 cups, the tea for Maeve, and what looked like black coffee for himself. "Changed my mind about leaving," he said, setting the tea in front of her and settling into the chair across from her. "Hope that's okay." Maeve stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Being kind to me, helping me. You don't know me." Noah took a sip of his coffee, considering the question. "Couple weeks ago, my daughter got lost in a shopping mall. She's 7. Wandered off while I was looking at something, and by the time I realized she was gone, I couldn't find her anywhere. Worst 15 minutes of my life." He paused, his jaw tightening at the memory. "And then this woman brought her back. Young woman, wearing a surgical mask and a hood, barely making eye contact. My daughter was holding her hand, completely calm, even though I could see this woman was terrified. Isabella, that's my daughter. She kept saying, 'Dad, the nice lady helped me. She's my friend.' And this woman, she couldn't get away fast enough. Wouldn't even let me thank her properly, just disappeared into the crowd." Maeve's teacup stopped halfway to her lips. Her hand started shaking again. "That was you, wasn't it?" Noah said quietly. "The mall. 2 weeks ago," she remembered, the little girl with dark curls and wide, frightened eyes, the way she'd been crying, calling for her daddy. The security guards walking right past, too busy with their radios. Maeve had broken her own rule. Don't engage, don't interact, stay invisible. But the girl had been so scared. I don't, Maeve started. Isabella described you, Noah continued. She's really observant, said you had sad eyes, said you were wearing a mask but she could tell you were nice. Said when the mask slipped for a second and she saw your face, you got really upset, but she wasn't scared at all. His voice dropped even lower. She told me you looked brave. Maeve's eyes filled with tears. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. So I owe you, Noah said. And when I saw you standing in that doorway looking like you were about to bolt, I figured it was time to pay that debt. That's all. Not charity, not pity, just evening the score. She really said I looked brave? Maeve whispered. She did. Wouldn't stop talking about you for days. Wanted to know if we could find you. Thank you properly. I told her maybe someday. Noah smiled slightly. Guess someday is today. They sat in silence for a moment, the cafe noise washing over them. Maeve lifted the teacup to her lips, taking a small sip. The chamomile was hot and sweet, warming her from the inside out. I'm Maeve, she said finally. Noah, good to officially meet you. Your daughter, Isabella. Is she okay? She's great. Tough as nails, that kid. Gets it from her mother. Noah's expression flickered, something painful crossing his features before he smoothed it away. Well, she used to. It's just us now, has been for about 2 years. I'm sorry. Don't be. Better this way. Noah took another drink of coffee. You live around here? Maeve hesitated. The truth was complicated. Sort of. My father, he has a house in the West Hills. I've been staying there. Collins, Noah said suddenly, his eyes widening slightly. Maeve Collins. I knew you looked familiar. You're Grant Collins' daughter. Maeve's entire body tensed. Here it came, the recognition, the change in demeanor, the sudden transformation from human connection to public spectacle. She started to stand. Wait, Noah said quickly, not touching her but holding up a hand. I don't care about that. The money, the whole billionaire thing. The news coverage after the fire. I remember now. You were 17. I don't want to talk about it. Then we won't. Noah's voice was firm. I'm just saying, I remember. And I remember thinking how fucked up it was that the media camped outside your hospital trying to get photos. How they treated you like a story instead of a person. Maeve slowly sank back into her chair. You're the first person in 3 years who's said that out loud. Well, it's true. What happened to you was a tragedy. How they handled it was a crime. Outside the window, Portland went about its morning business. Cars rolled past on wet streets. A jogger with a dog splashed through puddles. The sky remained stubbornly gray, but inside the cafe something had shifted. Something small and fragile, but real. Can I tell you something? Maeve said, her fingers wrapped around the teacup like it was an anchor. About that day in the mall? If you want to. It was the first time I'd been in public in months. My therapist basically forced me. She said I needed to practice being around people. I thought I was going to have a panic attack the entire time. And then I saw Isabella, and she was crying, and I couldn't leave her there. Even though I knew if my mask slipped, if anyone saw me, it would be bad. But she was just a little girl who needed help. And you helped her, Noah said, even though it cost you. When she touched my face, when the mask came down and she saw me, I expected her to scream. Everyone screams, or they stare, or they make this face like they're trying really hard not to make a face, which is somehow worse. But Isabella didn't. No, she just looked at me and said I was brave, like it was the simplest thing in the world, like my scars were just part of me, not the whole story. Maeve's voice cracked. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Noah leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, thoughtful eyes. You want to know what I think? I think my daughter has better instincts than most adults. She doesn't see you as your scars because she understands something most people forget, that everybody's got damage. Hers just happens to be on the inside. What do you mean? Her mother left us, just woke up one day and decided she didn't want to be a wife or a mother anymore. packed a bag, signed some papers, and disappeared. Isabella was 5, old enough to understand abandonment, young enough to think it was somehow her fault. Noah's jaw tightened. Took a year of therapy to convince her otherwise. She still has nightmares. Still asks sometimes if I'm going to leave too. That's horrible. Yeah, it is. But it taught her something important, that pain doesn't make you broken. It just makes you real. He met Maeve's eyes across the table. She saw that in you. The realness. That's why she wasn't scared. Maeve felt something crack open in her chest, some protective shell she'd built around herself starting to fracture. For 3 years, she'd believed the scars defined her, that they were all anyone could see. But this child, this 7-year-old girl who'd suffered her own kind of wounds, had looked past them entirely. I'd like to meet her again, Maeve said softly. Properly this time, if that's okay. Noah's face broke into a genuine smile. The first real one Maeve had seen from him. It transformed his entire appearance, made him look younger, less worn down. She would love that. Fair warning, though, she'll probably talk your ear off. Kid doesn't have a shy bone in her body. I don't mind. They talked for another hour. Noah told her about his work at Reyes Auto Repair, the shop he'd inherited from his uncle. How he worked 70-hour weeks trying to keep it afloat while raising Isabella alone. How his daughter wanted to be a veterinarian or astronaut or possibly both, and he was determined to make sure she had every opportunity to chase those dreams, even if it meant he never slept. Maeve found herself sharing things she hadn't told anyone. About the fire, how it had started in the science lab at her private high school, a faulty gas line, and a spark. How she'd been helping a younger student and had pushed the girl out of the way, taking the brunt of the explosion. How everyone called her a hero, but all she felt was grateful to be alive, and then guilty for feeling grateful when her face was destroyed, and then angry at herself for caring about something as shallow as appearance. That's not shallow, Noah said firmly. You're human. Humans care about how they look. It's not vain to mourn what you lost. My father says I should be grateful I survived. You can be grateful and still grieve. Both things are true. It was such a simple statement, but it hit Maeve like a revelation. For 3 years, her father had insisted she count her blessings, focus on the positive, remember it could have been worse. He'd meant well, she knew that, but he'd never once acknowledged that she had lost something real and important, never validated the grief. Grant Collins is your dad, Noah said slowly. The tech billionaire. The guy who basically owns half of Silicon Valley. That's him? Must be complicated. That's an understatement. Maeve stirred her now cold tea. He loves me. I know he does. But after the fire, he just shut down. Hired the best doctors, the best therapists, the best everything. But he couldn't look at me. Still can't, really. He talks to me, but his eyes go just over my shoulder. It's like I'm a problem he's trying to fix, not a person. That must be lonely. It is. Maeve's voice was barely a whisper. I have a house full of staff, personal assistants, security, nurses. But I'm completely alone. Noah reached across the table, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and briefly touched the back of her hand. Just a moment of contact, then he withdrew. Not anymore, he said simply. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Neither of them was quite ready to examine. Maeve felt her pulse quicken, felt that crack in her chest widen a little more. I should probably go, Noah said reluctantly, checking his phone. I've got a transmission rebuild waiting for me, and I'm already behind schedule. But he hesitated. Would you want to get coffee again? Or tea? Whatever. Maeve's first instinct was to say no, to retreat back into safety, back into isolation. But then she thought of Isabella's small hand in hers, of the words, "You look brave," of this man who'd crossed a cafe full of staring people just to make sure she didn't run away. Yes, she said. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers. Noah stood to leave, pulling on a worn canvas jacket. Oh, and Maeve? That thing you did at the mall with Isabella? That wasn't fear. That was courage. There's a difference. What's the difference? Courage means you're scared and you do it anyway. You've got more of that than you know. He left then, weaving through the cafe tables and out into the gray morning. Maeve watched him go, then slowly became aware of the cafe around her again. A few people were still glancing her way, but it felt different now. Less like being on display. More like simply being present. She finished her tea, paid for both their drinks, and walked back out into the cold. Her car was parked 2 blocks away. A black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows and a driver who'd been paid to wait. But she didn't head straight for it. Instead, she walked slowly down the sidewalk, letting the winter air hit her face, scarred and unscarred side both exposed to the world. People passed her. Some stared, some didn't. A woman with a baby smiled at her. A teenager with headphones didn't even glance up. The world kept turning, and Maeve was finally part of it again. When she reached the car, Marcus, her driver, opened the door with professional efficiency. "Home, Miss Collins?" Maeve paused, 1 foot in the car. Home meant the estate, the covered mirrors, the careful avoidance, the suffocating protection that felt more like prison. "Actually," she said, "could we stop at a bookstore first? I want to pick up something for a 7-year-old girl, something about being brave." Marcus's professional mask slipped for just a second, surprise flickering across his features. But he recovered quickly. "Of course, miss. I know a good one on Hawthorne." As the car pulled into traffic, Maeve caught her reflection in the window, the right side of her face visible, scars and all. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't immediately look away. She just looked, really looked. And while she didn't love what she saw, she didn't hate it quite as much either. Somewhere in Portland, Noah Reyes was probably elbow deep in an engine, grease under his fingernails, counting the hours until he could pick up his daughter from school. Somewhere, Isabella was learning about fractions or geography, unaware that she'd changed someone's life with a few simple words. And somewhere, buried under years of pain and isolation, Maeve Collins felt the smallest, most fragile spark of hope beginning to glow. She pulled out her phone, looked at the contact Noah had entered. Just his name and number, nothing fancy. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she typed, "Thank you for today? Really? The response came almost immediately. "Thank you for trusting me. Say hi to Isabella for me when you pick out that book. She's going to love meeting you." And Maeve smiled, a real smile, the kind that used to come easily before the fire, before the isolation, before she'd learned to make herself invisible. It felt strange on her face, pulling at the scar tissue on her right side, but it also felt right. The bookstore on Hawthorne was small and crowded, the kind of place where books were stacked in creative displays and the owner knew her inventory by heart. Maeve spent 20 minutes browsing the children's section, finally settling on a picture book about a dragon who was afraid to fly. The owner, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a beaded chain, wrapped it without comment on Maeve's appearance. Just normal service, normal interaction. It was everything Maeve had been missing. That evening, as Portland's early winter darkness settled over the city, Maeve sat in a room at the estate, a room that looked like it belonged in an architectural magazine. All clean lines and expensive furnishings, and absolutely no personality. She unwrapped the book she'd bought, running her fingers over the illustrated cover. A small dragon with silver scales looking up at an enormous sky. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Noah. Isabella, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a drawing of what appeared to be a person with half their hair on fire. The caption read, "She drew her hero, wants to give it to you herself. Saturday afternoon, park near my place? No pressure." Maeve looked at that drawing, at the childish crayon lines and enthusiastic colors, at this little girl's interpretation of bravery. And she made a decision that would have terrified her yesterday. She typed back, "Saturday works. Send me the address. I'll be there." 3 dots appeared. Then, "You sure?" "I'm sure." "Okay. Fair warning. She's going to hug you. Just preparing you." Maeve laughed out loud, the sound startling in the quiet room. When was the last time she'd laughed? Really laughed? "I think I can handle it," she wrote back. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Maeve Collins slept without nightmares. She dreamed, instead of coffee shops and kind eyes, of small hands and brave dragons, of a world where scars were just part of the story, not the ending. Across town, in a cramped apartment above a liquor store, Noah Reyes tucked his daughter into bed and listened to her excited chatter about the weekend, about meeting her hero, about all the questions she wanted to ask. When Isabella finally drifted off to sleep, Noah sat in his living room with a beer he didn't drink, thinking about the woman in the cafe, about the courage it had taken for her to walk through that door, about the loneliness he'd seen in her eyes, a loneliness he recognized because he wore it too, every day, in the space his wife had left behind. He wasn't looking for romance, wasn't looking for anything, really, except to get through each day and give his daughter a decent life. But something about Maeve Collins had cracked through the numbness he'd been living in. Her vulnerability, maybe. Her strength hidden under all that fear, the way she'd shared her story, like she was handing him something precious and fragile. Noah pulled out his phone, looked at their text exchange. Such a small thing, such a simple connection, but it felt like the first real thing he'd experienced in 2 years. His phone buzzed. Another message from Maeve. I know this is strange and we barely know each other, but I wanted to say, today mattered. You didn't just help me into a cafe, you reminded me I'm still human, still here. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you anyway. Noah stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, You did the same for me. See you Saturday. Outside, Portland's winter rain began to fall, washing the streets clean, running in rivulets down windows and pooling in gutters. The city slept. And in 2 different places, 2 people who'd forgotten what it felt like to hope began, very carefully, to remember. The cafe where it all started locked its doors, its owner wiping down counters and wondering about the strange encounter she'd witnessed that morning. The girl with the scars, the mechanic with the kind eyes, the way the whole room had held its breath waiting to see what would happen. Sometimes the owner thought, the world surprises you. Sometimes people are better than you expect. Sometimes courage looks like a trembling hand reaching out to meet a steady one. Sometimes hope walks through a door and finds exactly what it needs. She turned off the lights, locked up, and walked out into the rain, already looking forward to tomorrow, to the next chapter of whatever story was unfolding in her little cafe. Because that's the thing about hope. Once it starts, it's contagious. It spreads. It grows. And 2 people who'd been alone for so long had finally found each other. The hard part was done. Everything else was just beginning. Saturday arrived with the kind of crystalline winter sunshine that made Portland look almost magical. The rain-washed streets gleaming and the evergreens standing sharp against a pale blue sky. Maeve stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, paralyzed by indecision. What did you wear to meet a 7-year-old in a park? Everything she owned was either too formal, designer labels her father's stylist had selected, or too deliberate in its casualness, the kind of expensive casual that screamed money. She finally settled on dark jeans, boots, and a simple gray sweater. No scarf to hide behind. No hood. Just herself. Marcus drove her to the address Noah had sent. A small neighborhood park in southeast Portland, the kind of place with worn playground equipment and a basketball court where the nets had long since disappeared. It was nothing like the manicured private spaces Maeve was accustomed to, and that made it perfect. Noah was waiting by a bench, Isabella bouncing excitedly beside him. The moment Maeve stepped out of the Mercedes, the little girl took off running. Isabella, wait, Noah called, but it was too late. The girl crashed into Maeve with the full force of 7-year-old enthusiasm, small arms wrapping around Maeve's waist, face pressed against her stomach. Maeve froze, every muscle locking up. Physical contact, uninvited, unexpected. Her therapist's voice reminded her to breathe, to ground herself, to remember she was safe. I knew it was you. Isabella pulled back, her face radiant with joy. Dad showed me your picture on his phone, and I said, that's her. That's my hero lady. You came back. Maeve looked down at this child, dark curls escaping from a ponytail, gap between her front teeth, wearing a purple jacket with a unicorn patch and mismatched socks visible above her sneakers. She wasn't staring at Maeve's scars, wasn't flinching, just smiling with uncomplicated happiness. Hi, Isabella, Maeve managed, her voice unsteady. I brought you something. Noah had caught up, slightly out of breath. Izzy, what did we talk about? Personal space. It's okay, Maeve said quickly, and she meant it. The hug had been startling but not unwelcome. When was the last time someone had hugged her like that? Like she was just a person? Just Maeve. Isabella grabbed her hand, tugging her toward the bench. Come sit. I have a million questions. Dad said I could ask you anything except about the fire because that's private unless you want to talk about it, which you probably don't, and that's totally okay. Isabella Grace Reyes, breathe, Noah interjected, but he was smiling. Give the woman a second to sit down at least. They settled onto the bench, Isabella in the middle, pressed against Maeve's side like they'd known each other for years, Noah on the other end, giving space but close enough. Maeve pulled the wrapped book from her bag. This is for you, she said. For being kind to me when I needed it most. Isabella tore into the wrapping with zero regard for preserving the paper, revealing the dragon book. Her eyes went wide. Oh, is this about being scared? Dad says everybody's scared of something. It is. It's about a dragon who's afraid to fly. Does she learn how? She does, but it takes help from her friends. Isabella hugged the book to her chest. I'm scared of lots of things. The dark, and big dogs, and my mom coming back. The last part came out quieter, matter of fact, but weighted. Noah's expression tightened. Izzy, what? It's true. If she came back, she might take me away from you. That's scary. Isabella turned to Maeve. My mom left. Dad doesn't like to talk about it, but I know he's sad. He pretends he's not, but I can tell. Isabella, Noah said more firmly, but Maeve touched his arm, a brief contact that stopped him. It's okay, she said. Being scared of losing someone you love isn't silly. That's real. You get it, Isabella said with satisfaction. I knew you would. You have sad eyes like Dad. Maeve glanced at Noah, who was looking anywhere but at her, a muscle working in his jaw. So they were both broken, she thought, both walking around with wounds no one could see, except Isabella could see them, somehow. Children always knew. So, Isabella continued, shifting gears with the easy adaptability of childhood, do you have any pets? I really want a dog, but Dad says our apartment doesn't allow them. When I grow up, I'm going to have like 50 dogs. No pets, Maeve said, but I used to have a cat before the fire. His name was Hemingway. What happened to him? My father found him a new home. He thought I had enough to deal with without taking care of a pet. The memory stung. She'd loved that cat, had begged to keep him, but Grant Collins made decisions quickly and absolutely. That's sad, Isabella declared. When you're sad, you need pets more, not less. Right, Dad? Right, Noah agreed quietly, watching Maeve with those dark, thoughtful eyes. They spent the afternoon in that park. Isabella dragged Maeve to the swings, insisting she needed a push. Maeve obliged, discovering that pushing a child on a swing was both terrifying. What if she pushed too hard? What if Isabella fell? And oddly joyful. Isabella's laughter rang out across the park, pure and unself-conscious, and other families turned to look. Some stared at Maeve's scars, some didn't. It mattered less than she'd expected. Noah stood nearby, hands in his pockets, a small smile playing at his lips. When Isabella finally jumped off mid-swing, giving Maeve a heart attack, and ran to the slide, he moved closer. She likes you, he said. Really likes you. She was up at 6 this morning, planning everything she wanted to show you. She's wonderful, Maeve said honestly. You're doing an incredible job with her. Most days I'm just trying not to screw her up too badly. I think you're doing better than just not screwing up. Noah met her eyes, and something passed between them. Recognition? Maybe. Respect. The acknowledgement of two people who understood what it meant to survive. Can I ask you something? He said. You don't have to answer. Okay. In the cafe, you said your father can't look at you. Is that why you agreed to meet us? Because we're safe? Because we're nobody? Maeve flinched at the directness of it, but Noah's expression wasn't cruel, just honest, and she was tired of dishonesty. Maybe at first, she admitted, maybe I thought it would be easier with people who didn't know me before, who didn't have expectations of who I used to be. But that's not why I came today. No. I came because Isabella called me brave, and I want to believe her. I came because you held my hand when everyone else turned away. I came because, for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe I could be someone other than Grant Collins' damaged daughter. Noah absorbed this, nodding slowly. You want to get some food? There's a taco truck 2 blocks from here. Nothing fancy, but it's good. And Isabella will literally never stop talking about you if we don't feed her soon. Low blood sugar makes her chatty. I'm already chatty, Isabella yelled from the top of the slide. I heard that. Maeve laughed. Actually laughed. Tacos sound perfect. The taco truck was exactly as advertised. Nothing fancy, just good food served from a converted panel van with hand-painted signs. They ordered at the window, Noah insisting on paying despite Maeve's protests, and found a picnic table nearby. Isabella kept up a constant stream of conversation, asking Maeve about everything from her favorite color to whether she believed in aliens to if she thought unicorns were real or just horses with weird head injuries. Izzy, let the woman eat, Noah said, but he was grinning. It's fine, Maeve assured him. Purple. Yes, and definitely real. See? She gets me. Isabella took a massive bite of her taco, managing to get salsa on her nose. Maeve watched them together, the easy rhythm of father and daughter, the way Noah automatically handed Isabella a napkin before she even had to ask, the way Isabella leaned against his shoulder between bites. This was what family looked like. Not the sterile, managed environment of the Collins estate. Not the careful distance her father maintained. Just love, messy and imperfect and real. Your turn, Isabella said suddenly. Ask me questions. Okay, Maeve thought for a moment. What do you want to be when you grow up? That's easy. A scientist or a teacher, or maybe I'll run an animal shelter. Dad says I can be anything. He's right. What did you want to be before? Isabella trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Before the fire? Maeve finished gently. It's okay to say it. I wanted to be a doctor. Pediatrics specifically. I liked the idea of helping kids. You still could, Isabella said with the absolute certainty of childhood. Maybe. But they both knew it was unlikely. 3 years out of school. A visible difference that would make patients and parents uncomfortable. A father who wanted her safe and hidden. The dream felt like it belonged to someone else. Noah's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. Damn it. What's wrong? Maeve asked. Emergency at the shop, transmission. I've been rebuilding, just blew a seal. It's for a customer who needs their truck back tonight. He looked torn, glancing between Isabella and his phone. Go, Maeve said immediately. I'll stay with Isabella. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering. Dad, please, Isabella chimed in. I want to stay with Maeve. We barely got to talk yet. Noah hesitated, clearly wrestling with the decision. Are you sure? It might be a couple hours. I'm sure. And she was. The thought of being alone with a 7-year-old should have terrified her. She hadn't been around children since the fire, but with Isabella it felt natural, safe. Okay. Noah stood, pulling out his wallet and handing Maeve some cash. For ice cream or whatever she cons you into buying. And Izzy, you listen to Maeve. Understand? She's in charge. Got it, Dad. Isabella was already bouncing with excitement. Noah leaned down, kissed the top of his daughter's head, then looked at Maeve. Thank you. Really, I owe you. We're even, Maeve said softly. Remember? He held her gaze for a moment longer, then hurried off toward where his truck, a beat-up Ford that had definitely seen better days, was parked. They watched him drive away, and then it was just the two of them. So, Isabella said, grinning, want to get ice cream and then go to the bookstore? There's one close that has a kids section with beanbags and everything. Absolutely. The ice cream shop was small and local, the kind of place with flavors like Marionberry cheesecake and salt and straw. Isabella got something bright blue that Maeve suspected would stain her tongue for days. Maeve chose vanilla, playing it safe. They sat outside despite the cold, Isabella swinging her legs and chattering between licks. Can I ask you something? Isabella said, suddenly serious. Sure. Does it hurt? Your face? Maeve should have expected the question. Children were curious, honest. Not anymore. It did at first. For a long time, actually. But now it's just there. Do people stare a lot? Yes. That must be annoying. It is. Maeve smiled despite herself. Very annoying. I think you're pretty, Isabella said matter-of-factly. Different pretty, maybe, but still pretty. Like a character in a book who's been through adventures. Maeve felt her throat tighten. Thank you, Isabella. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Really? That's sad. People should say nice things more. They finished their ice cream and walked to the bookstore, Isabella's small hand slipping into Maeve's without hesitation. The weight of it, that trust, made Maeve want to cry. When had anyone trusted her so completely? The bookstore was exactly as Isabella had described, a wonderland of books with a dedicated children's section featuring bean bags and a reading nook. Isabella immediately started pulling books off shelves, showing Maeve her favorites, reading passages aloud in animated voices. Maeve sank into a beanbag and just watched, marveling at this child's complete lack of self-consciousness. Isabella existed in the world without fear, without worrying what others thought. When had Maeve lost that ability? You're doing it again, Isabella said, looking up from a book about space. Doing what? Looking sad, with your eyes. Sorry. Don't be sorry. I'm just saying you don't have to be sad here. It's a bookstore. Bookstores are happy places. You're right, Maeve agreed. What are you reading? Isabella launched into an explanation of black holes and event horizons that was surprisingly sophisticated for a 7-year-old. Clearly, Noah was raising a smart kid. They spent over an hour in that bookstore, Isabella reading aloud, Maeve listening and occasionally asking questions. Other customers came and went. A few stared at Maeve. Most didn't. The world kept turning. When Noah finally texted that he was done and could pick them up, Isabella actually groaned. Already? But we're having fun. We can do this again, Maeve heard herself say. If you want, if your dad says it's okay. Yes, Dad will definitely say yes. He likes you, I can tell. You can? Uh-huh. He smiles more when you're around. Real smiles, not pretend ones. Maeve didn't know what to do with that information, so she filed it away to examine later. They bought the space book, Maeve's treat, despite Isabella's protests, and headed outside to wait for Noah. When his truck pulled up, Isabella immediately started talking before he'd even fully stopped. Dad, we got ice cream and went to the bookstore, and Maeve bought me a book about black holes, and we talked about everything, and it was the best day ever. Noah climbed out, looking exhausted but amused. Sounds like you had fun. The most fun. Can Maeve come over for dinner, please? We have spaghetti and I can show her my room. Izzy, Maeve's probably got plans. I don't, Maeve interjected, surprising herself. I mean, I'd love to, if it's not too much trouble. Noah studied her face, and Maeve saw the question there. Are you sure? She nodded, just slightly. She was sure. Going back to the empty estate, to her father's careful distance and the staff who treated her like fragile china, felt impossible right now. She wanted to stay in this world a little longer. This world where she was just Maeve, where a little girl held her hand and a mechanic smiled real smiles. Okay, Noah said finally. Fair warning, our apartment is small and not fancy, and I'm not a great cook. I like spaghetti, Maeve said simply. They stopped at a grocery store so Noah could grab supplies, Isabella insisting Maeve come in with them. It was such an ordinary activity, pushing a cart through fluorescent-lit aisles, debating pasta sauce brands, Isabella sneaking cookies into the cart when she thought Noah wasn't looking. Maeve couldn't remember the last time she'd been in a regular grocery store. She'd forgotten what normal felt like. The apartment was in an older building, third-floor walk-up, exactly as Noah had described, small but clean. The living room held a worn couch, a TV that was at least 10 years old, and shelves filled with Isabella's drawings and school projects. The kitchen was tiny, barely room for 2 people, but it felt like a home. It felt lived in and loved. My room, Isabella announced, dragging Maeve down a short hallway. The room was an explosion of color, purple walls covered in posters of planets and animals, a bed with a unicorn comforter, stuffed animals everywhere. A child's room, unabashedly enthusiastic about its own existence. Isabella showed Maeve everything, her rock collection, her drawings, the diorama she'd made of the solar system. Maeve sat on the floor and listened, asking questions, genuinely interested. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. From the kitchen came the sounds of Noah cooking, water running, a pot clanging, the sizzle of something hitting a hot pan. Isabella's voice as constant background, weaving stories and facts together in 7-year-old logic. "Okay, come set the table," Noah called eventually. They ate in the small kitchen, 3 people crowded around a table meant for 2, knees bumping, passing garlic bread and Parmesan cheese. The spaghetti was simple but good, and the company was better. Isabella dominated the conversation, but Noah managed to slip in questions here and there, drawing Maeve out. "What do you do all day?" he asked. "At the estate." Maeve pushed pasta around her plate. "Not much. Therapy twice a week. Online classes sometimes, though I haven't been good about keeping up. Mostly, I just exist." "That sounds boring," Isabella declared. "It is," Maeve admitted. "Really, really boring." "You should get a job," Isabella suggested. "Dad says work makes you feel useful." "Izzy, it's more complicated than that," Noah started, but Maeve shook her head. "No, she's right. I should do something. I just don't know what. I'm not exactly qualified for anything anymore." You helped me when I was lost," Isabella pointed out. "You're good at helping people." After dinner, Isabella convinced them to watch a movie, some animated thing about talking animals that Maeve had never seen. They piled onto the small couch, Isabella in the middle again, gradually falling asleep against Maeve's shoulder. Maeve barely watched the screen. She was too busy memorizing this feeling, the weight of a child's trust, the warmth of being included, the sound of Noah's occasional laugh at something on screen. When the credits rolled, Isabella was fully asleep. Noah carefully lifted her, carrying her to her room. Maeve heard the murmur of his voice, the creak of bed springs, the click of a door closing. When he returned, she was standing, gathering her coat. "I should call Marcus, my driver." "Don't." Noah stopped, reconsidering. "I mean, stay for a bit if you want. Have a drink or something, real conversation, without a 7-year-old referee." Maeve hesitated, then set her coat back down. "Okay." Noah pulled 2 beers from the fridge, handed her one, and they settled back onto the couch. For a moment, neither spoke. "Thank you," Noah said finally, "for today, for staying with her, for being patient with her questions." "I loved it," Maeve said honestly. "All of it. Being with her. It's the first time in 3 years I've felt normal." "Normal's overrated," says the man with a normal life. Noah laughed, but it was bitter. "This isn't normal. Normal is 2 parents and a stable home and not working yourself to death trying to keep everything together. This is survival." "But you're doing it together, you and Isabella. You're a team." "We are," Noah agreed, his expression softening. "She's the reason I get up every morning, the reason any of this matters." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easier now without Isabella's enthusiastic interruptions. Noah told her about his uncle's shop, how he'd learned to fix cars at 14, how it was supposed to be temporary after Isabella's mother left, but had somehow become permanent. Maeve told him about the years before the fire, private schools and expectations, her mother's death when she was 12, the way her father had thrown himself into work afterward. "We both lost parents," Noah observed, "just in different ways. Your ex-wife, do you ever hear from her?" "Christmas card last year, that's it. She signed away custody, moved to Seattle, started over, like we never existed." The pain in his voice was raw, unhealed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Better to know where we stand than live with false hope." Noah took a long drink of beer. "What about you, your dad? Why does he keep you locked away?" "He's protecting me. From photographers, from people who would stare or ask questions, from the world." Maeve's voice dropped. "At least that's what he says. Sometimes I think he's protecting himself. From having to see what happened to me. From dealing with a daughter who isn't perfect anymore." "That's bullshit," Noah said bluntly. "Sorry, but it is. You didn't stop being his daughter because of some scars." "He doesn't see it that way." "Then he's wrong." The simple certainty in Noah's voice made something inside Maeve crack wider. She'd spent 3 years accepting her father's version of reality, that she was damaged, that she needed protection, that staying hidden was best for everyone. Hearing someone contradict that so absolutely felt revolutionary. Isabella was right, she said quietly, about me having sad eyes. I am sad. Or I was. Today was the first day in years I wasn't. Noah set down his beer, turning to face her fully. Can I tell you something? That day in the cafe when you walked in, I almost didn't get up. Almost stayed in my seat like everyone else. But I looked at you and I saw myself. The way I felt when my wife left. That look of someone who's been beaten down by life and is just trying to survive one more day. And I thought, if one person had crossed the room to me back then, had seen me instead of just seeing my situation, it might have helped. So I crossed the room to you. I'm glad you did. Me too. Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them, recognition deeper than words, connection forged in shared pain and tentative hope. Maeve felt her pulse quicken, felt heat rising in her cheeks. She'd forgotten what attraction felt like, had convinced herself she'd never feel it again. Noah's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at it, grimaced. Speaking of survival, I've got to be at the shop at 6 tomorrow morning. I should let you call your driver. Maeve nodded, but didn't move immediately. Noah, can I ask you something? Sure. Why aren't you afraid of me? Of my scars, I mean. Everyone else is. Noah considered the question seriously. I grew up around my uncle's shop. Saw him lose 3 fingers to an engine when I was 12. Watched him adapt, keep going, not let it define him. I learned early that scars, visible or not, are just proof you survived something. Nothing to be afraid of. Just part of who you are. I wish everyone saw it that way. Most people are afraid of anything that reminds them life can be fragile. Anything that proves bad things happen. You make them confront their own vulnerability. Noah stood, offered his hand to help her up. Their fear is about them, not you. Don't carry it for them. Maeve took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. They stood close for a moment, neither moving away. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. Everything she wasn't. Same time next week? Noah asked softly. If you want. Isabella's already planning it in her sleep, probably. I'd like that. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, professional as always, asking no questions about why Ms. Collins was leaving an apartment building in southeast Portland instead of wherever she'd claimed to be going. Maeve sat in the back seat, watching the city lights blur past, her phone already showing a text from Noah. Thanks for today. You're good for her. For us. N. She typed back. You're good for me too. M. At the estate, the house was dark except for the security lights and the soft glow from her father's study. Grant Collins was still working, as always. Maeve paused outside his door, hand raised to knock. She wanted to tell him about her day, about Isabella and Noah, about feeling human again. But through the door's gap, she could see him at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, talking business even at 10 p.m. on a Saturday. And she knew. He wouldn't understand, wouldn't approve, would probably assign more security, more restrictions, more protection that felt like prison. So she went to her room instead, changed for bed, and lay in the dark thinking about calloused hands and gap-toothed smiles and the way it felt to be part of something real. Her phone buzzed one more time, a photo from Noah. Isabella asleep, the dragon book clutched to her chest, a note saying, "She told me you're magic. I'm starting to think she's right." Maeve fell asleep smiling, dreaming of ordinary afternoons and extraordinary connection, of a world where she wasn't Grant Collins' damaged daughter, but just Maeve, scarred and scared and slowly, carefully, learning to be brave. The following weeks unfolded like a dream Maeve was afraid to wake from. Saturday afternoons became sacred. Isabella, Noah, and Maeve exploring Portland together. They visited the zoo, where Isabella insisted on reading every single informational plaque aloud. They went to a science museum, where Maeve found herself explaining cellular biology to a fascinated 7-year-old. They had picnics in parks, ate at food trucks, lived ordinary lives that felt extraordinary to someone who'd spent 3 years in isolation. Maeve started leaving the estate more often, coffee shops, libraries. Once, daringly, a movie theater. The stares didn't stop, but they bothered her less. She was building armor made of something stronger than avoidance, acceptance maybe, or at least tolerance. Noah texted her throughout the week. Nothing profound, just small moments. A photo of Isabella covered in paint from art class. A joke about a particularly stubborn carburetor. Questions about her day that no one else bothered to ask. Maeve found herself checking her phone constantly, smiling at messages that were simple but meant everything. It was the fourth Saturday, a month after that first cafe meeting, when everything began to unravel. They'd just finished lunch at a Thai restaurant, Isabella chattering about an upcoming school project, when Noah's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. "I need to take this," he said, voice tight. "Excuse me?" He walked outside, leaving Maeve and Isabella at the table. Through the window, Maeve could see him pacing, one hand pressed to his forehead, his expression growing darker with each passing second. When he came back in, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. "We need to go," he said shortly. "Now." "Dad, what's wrong?" Isabella's voice was small, frightened. "Nothing, baby. Just business. Come on." But it wasn't nothing. Maeve could see it in the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly as he drove them back to his apartment. Isabella sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, sensing her father's distress. Maeve wanted to ask what was wrong, but something in Noah's expression warned her to wait. At the apartment, Noah sent Isabella to her room to work on homework. The moment her door closed, he turned to Maeve. "That was my landlord. Someone called him, told him I was running an unlicensed daycare out of my apartment, that there were safety concerns, code violations. He's threatening eviction." "What? That's insane. You're not—" "I know I'm not, but he's spooked. Says he has to investigate, and if there's any truth to it, we're out." Noah's voice was barely controlled fury. "We can't afford to move. I'm barely making rent as it is. And Isabella's school is in this district. If we have to leave, who would do something like that?" Noah met her eyes. "Who do you think? Someone who doesn't want me around you." The implication hit Maeve like a physical blow. "My father." "That'd be my guess." "No, he wouldn't. He's overprotective, but he's not cruel." "Maeve," Noah's voice was gentle but firm. "You're the daughter of a billionaire. I'm a mechanic who can barely keep his head above water. You think he wants you spending time with me? With us?" Maeve's phone rang before she could respond, her father's name on the screen. With shaking hands, she answered. "Maeve, we need to talk." Grant Collins' voice was clipped, businesslike. "About your recent activities." "What about them?" "I know you've been seeing someone, a mechanic named Noah Reyes, and his daughter." "How?" But of course he knew. He probably had people following her, had probably known from the start. "I've had you protected since the fire. You think I wouldn't notice when you started disappearing for hours at a time?" Grant's voice softened slightly. "Sweetheart, I understand you're lonely, but this isn't appropriate. This man has been kinder to me than anyone in 3 years." Maeve cut in, her own anger rising. "He treats me like a person, not a problem. He's using you. Can't you see that? A single father struggling financially suddenly befriends a billionaire's daughter? It's not complicated, Maeve. You're wrong. I'm protecting you. That's what fathers do." Grant paused. "Come home. We'll talk about this properly, face to face." "Did you call his landlord?" Maeve demanded. "Did you threaten him?" Silence on the other end. Then, "I did what was necessary to ensure your safety." "That's not safety. That's control." Maeve's voice cracked. "You can't do this. You can't destroy people's lives just because you don't approve of who I spend time with." "I can and I will. This man is wrong for you. This situation is inappropriate. If you don't end this association voluntarily, I'll take further measures." "What measures?" "His auto shop. I've looked into it. It's barely solvent. One lawsuit, one inspection that finds violations, and it's done. Gone. Is that what you want? For him and his daughter to suffer because you're lonely?" Maeve felt sick. "You wouldn't. Test me." Grant's voice was iron. "Come home. Now. We'll discuss your future, your real future, not this fantasy you've been living." The line went dead. Maeve lowered the phone, his hands trembling. Noah was watching her, his expression resigned. He already knew. He threatened you, Maeve whispered. Your shop, your home, everything. I figured he would eventually. Men like your father don't let people like me get close to their daughters. Noah, I'm so sorry. I'll fix this. I'll talk to him. Make him understand. Maeve. Noah took her hands, his grip steady even though everything else was falling apart. You can't fix this. He's got all the power, all the money. He can destroy me without even thinking about it. Hell, he probably already has people looking for ways to do it. So what do? You go home. You stay away from us. You live your life, and we live ours. No. The word came out fierce, definite. I'm not doing that. I'm not abandoning you and Isabella because my father is having a tantrum. It's not a tantrum. It's reality. Your father can make my life hell. More than that, he can hurt Isabella. Take her from me if he digs deep enough, finds the right judge, makes the right accusations. I can't risk that. From down the hall came a small sound. Isabella's door opening. She emerged, eyes red from crying. Dad, are we leaving? Are we going to be homeless? Noah was across the room in an instant, scooping her up even though she was really too big to be carried. No, baby, no. We're going to be fine, I promise. I heard you talking. I heard Maeve's dad is mad. Isabella looked at Maeve over Noah's shoulder. Is it because of me? Because I wanted to be your friend? No, sweetheart, Maeve said, moving closer. None of this is your fault, not one bit. Then why is he being mean? How did you explain to a 7-year-old that some people viewed kindness as weakness, that money could be weaponized, that the world was often cruel to those who had the least? Because he's scared, Maeve said finally. Sometimes when people are scared, they do the wrong things for what they think are the right reasons. Are you going to leave us? Isabella's voice was so small, so heartbreakingly vulnerable. Maeve looked at Noah, saw the warning in his eyes. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to say yes, to walk away, protect them from her father's wrath. But looking at this child who'd shown her what bravery looked like, at this man who'd held her hand when everyone else turned away, she couldn't do it. No, Maeve said firmly. I'm not leaving you. Maeve, Noah started, but she cut him off. He's my father, not my owner. I'm 20 years old, an adult. He can threaten all he wants, but he can't actually stop me from seeing you. He can if I'm living in my car because we got evicted. Then you won't live in your car. You'll... Maeve trailed off, an idea forming. Crazy. Impossible. Exactly what she needed. You'll move into the estate. There are guest houses, separate buildings. You and Isabella can stay there until this blows over. Noah stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Are you serious? Completely. It's perfect. My father wants me home and protected? Fine. I'll be home. But you'll be there too. He can't threaten your housing if I'm providing it. Maeve, that's insane. We can't just move into your father's property. Why not? There's room. The West Guest House has been empty for 2 years. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, totally separate from the main house. Isabella could have her own room, a yard to play in. We can't afford... I'm not asking you to pay. I'm offering help, the way you helped me. Maeve crouched down so she was eye level with Isabella, still in Noah's arms. What do you think? Want to live somewhere with a big yard? Maybe room for that dog you've been wanting? Isabella's eyes went wide. A dog? We are not getting a dog, Noah said automatically, but Maeve could see him wavering. Just think about it. It solves the immediate problem, buys us time to figure out the rest. The rest. The enormity of what they were facing crashed over Maeve. Her father would be furious, would fight her on this. But for the first time in 3 years, she had something worth fighting for. Noah set Isabella down, ran a hand through his hair. This is crazy. Probably. Your father will lose it. Definitely. We'd be completely dependent on you. On your generosity. No, Maeve said quietly. You'd be accepting help from someone who cares about you. There's a difference. Noah looked at her for a long moment, and Maeve saw the war happening behind his eyes. Pride versus practicality. Independence versus his daughter's well-being. Finally, he nodded. Okay, temporarily, until I figure something else out. Okay, Isabella threw herself at Maeve, hugging her waist with all the strength a 7-year-old could muster. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we really get a dog? We'll see, Maeve said, smiling despite everything. Over Isabella's head, she met Noah's eyes. He looked grateful and terrified in equal measure. She understood. She felt the same way. The next few hours passed in a blur. Maeve called Marcus, explained they needed to move some things. If her driver was surprised by the request to help a mechanic and his daughter move into the Collins estate, he didn't show it. They packed essentials, clothes, Isabella's school things, the most important toys and books. Noah looked around his apartment with an expression that broke Maeve's heart. This was supposed to be temporary, he said quietly while Isabella was in her room gathering stuffed animals. When we moved in after the divorce, just until I got back on my feet, that was 2 years ago. You did the best you could, are doing the best you can. Is it enough, though? When one phone call from your father can tear it all down? He won't make that call. I won't let him. Noah turned to her. You really think you can stop him? I have to try. The drive to the estate was surreal. Isabella pressed her face against the Mercedes window, marveling at the increasingly large houses as they climbed into the West Hills. When they finally pulled through the gates, wrought iron, topped with security cameras, her mouth fell open. This is where you live? It's like a castle. The main house was impressive, modern architecture, all glass and steel and clean lines, perched on a hillside with views of the city and Mount Hood beyond. But Maeve directed Marcus past it, down a curving driveway to the West Guest House. Smaller, but still substantial, a 2-bedroom cottage with its own garden and privacy from the main residence. Here, Maeve said, unlocking the door. It's been closed up, but housekeeping came through this afternoon. Everything should be ready. They stepped inside. The space was beautiful. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, a fireplace, furniture that looked expensive because it was. Isabella ran from room to room, exclaiming over everything. Noah stood in the entrance, looking like he'd landed on an alien planet. This is too much, he said. It's what I have to offer. Please, let me help you the way you helped me. Before Noah could respond, the front door opened. Grant Collins stood in the threshold, his expression thunderous. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Noah's truck. Every inch the billionaire patriarch. Isabella, go explore upstairs, Noah said quickly. His daughter, sensing danger, obeyed without argument. Grant waited until she was gone, then turned his attention to Maeve. What do you think you're doing? Helping friends. These people are not your friends. They're opportunists. Mr. Collins, Noah started, his voice level despite the obvious anger. I appreciate your concern for your daughter, but I wasn't speaking to you. Grant didn't even look at him. Maeve, this is unacceptable. You will not house these strangers on my property. It's not just your property. Mom left this estate to both of us. I have just as much right to invite guests as you do. Grant's jaw tightened. That was a low blow, invoking her dead mother, but it was also true. The estate had been in her mother's family, passed to both Maeve and Grant with provisions that neither could sell without the other's consent. Your mother would not approve of this situation. Mom would want me happy. She'd want me living, not hiding. Maeve's voice shook but held firm. Noah and Isabella are staying. That's not negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Grant finally looked at Noah, his gaze cold and assessing. How much? Excuse me, Noah said. How much money will it take for you to disappear, to take your daughter and leave my daughter alone? Name a number. The silence that followed was deafening. Maeve felt her face flush with shame and rage. Noah's expression went carefully blank, the look of someone who'd been insulted before and learned to hide the hurt. I'm not for sale, Noah said quietly. Neither is my daughter's friendship with Maeve. Everyone's for sale. It's just a matter of price. Then I guess I'm the exception. Grant smiled, but it was predatory. We'll see. I've dealt with men like you before. You think you're different, principled. But when the pressure gets high enough, when I start dismantling your life piece by piece, you'll take whatever I offer and run. Dad, stop it, Maeve snapped. Just stop. Noah isn't trying to use me. He's been nothing but kind. Why can't you see that? Because I see what you can't. You're vulnerable, lonely, desperate for connection. He He saw an opportunity and took it. That's not true, Maeve said, but doubt flickered in her chest. Was it? Had she been so starved for affection that she'd misread everything? Ask him, Grant said. Ask him if he would have approached you in that cafe if you weren't Grant Collins' daughter. If you were just some scarred girl with no money, no connections. Would he have crossed that room? Maeve turned to Noah, hating herself for needing to know. Noah. He met her eyes, and she saw pain there, complicated, honest pain. I don't know, he said finally. I'd like to think I would have, but I can't swear to it. What I can tell you is that once I got to know you, the money stopped mattering. You became Maeve, not Grant Collins' daughter, just Maeve. How convenient, Grant said. Get out, Maeve told her father. This is the guest house, my space. You're not welcome here. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're trying to control me. There's a difference, and I'm done being controlled. Grant looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe. He'd never seen her stand up to him before. She'd always been obedient, compliant, broken. We're not done discussing this, he said finally. Yes, we are. Noah and Isabella are staying. You're going to leave them alone. No more threats, no more manipulation, or I'll leave too. I'll move out, cut contact, and you can have your perfect empty house all to yourself. It was a bluff. Mostly. Maeve had nowhere else to go, but Grant didn't know that. She watched the calculation happen behind his eyes, the cost-benefit analysis of pushing further versus backing off. Fine, he said at last. They can stay, for now. But I'll be watching, and the moment I have proof this man is using you, he's gone. Understood? He didn't wait for an answer, just turned and left, the door closing with careful precision behind him. The silence he left was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. I should go, Noah said. This was a mistake. I'm making things worse between you and your father. No, Maeve said firmly. You're staying. We're figuring this out. Maeve, did you mean it, what you said? That once you got to know me, the money stopped mattering? Noah stepped closer, his dark eyes intense. Every word. When I look at you, I see someone brave, someone who survived hell and is trying to find her way back. I see someone my daughter adores, who makes her laugh, who treats her like she matters. I see someone who makes me remember what it feels like to hope. His voice dropped. The money? It's just noise. It's you I see. Just you. Maeve felt tears burning behind her eyes. My father is never going to approve of this, of us, whatever this is. I know. He's going to make your life difficult. I know that too. So why stay? Why not take whatever he offers and run? It would be easier. Noah reached out, brushed a strand of hair away from her scarred cheek. His touch was gentle, unafraid. Because easy isn't always right, and because walking away from you would feel like giving up on something important, something real. They stood close, the space between them charged with everything they weren't quite saying. Maeve had forgotten what this felt like. Attraction, possibility, hope. It terrified her. After the fire, she'd accepted that romance was over, that no one would want someone who looked like her. But Noah was looking at her like she was beautiful, like her scars were just part of her, not the whole story. Dad? Isabella's voice floated down from upstairs. Can I pick which room is mine? The moment broke. Noah stepped back, cleared his throat. Yeah, baby, pick whichever one you want. Isabella thundered down the stairs, grabbed Noah's hand. Come see. There's a window seat, and the bathroom has a bathtub big enough for 1,000,000 bubbles. Noah let himself be dragged away, glancing back at Maeve with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, definitely. But something else too, something that made her heart race. She helped them unpack, showed Isabella where everything was, explained how to work the complicated coffee maker in the kitchen. Normal domestic activities that felt surreal in this setting. By the time everything was settled, it was late. Isabella was falling asleep on the couch, exhausted from the day's emotional roller coaster. I should go, Maeve said. Let you both get some rest. Maeve. Noah walked her to the door. Thank you for all of this. I know what it cost you with your father. It's not over. You heard him. He's not going to let this go. I know. We'll deal with it. Together. That word, together, felt like a promise. Dangerous and wonderful in equal measure. Maeve walked back to the main house, exhausted and exhilarated and terrified. Her father was waiting in his study, exactly as she'd expected. She could see him through the window, sitting at his desk, staring at nothing. She could walk in, try to explain, make peace, or she could go to her room, stand her ground, choose herself for once. She chose herself. In bed that night, her phone buzzed. A photo from Noah. Isabella asleep in her new room, the dragon book on her nightstand, a stuffed unicorn clutched to her chest. The caption read, "She says this place has good dreams. Hope she's right. Thank you for believing in us." N. Maeve typed back, "Thank you for believing in me first. Sleep well. Sleep." She stared at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened. In the span of hours, she'd defied her father, opened her home to near strangers, drawn a line in the sand about her own life. It should have felt reckless. Instead, it felt right. Outside her window, in the guest house, lights gradually turned off. Noah and Isabella settling into their new temporary home. Temporary, they'd agreed. But Maeve was already hoping for something more permanent, something real. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. "This is not over. Your father made a mistake threatening me. Now he'll see what happens when you push back." Anonymous. Maeve's blood ran cold. She screenshot the message, sent it to Noah. His response came immediately. "Don't worry, probably just talk. Get some sleep. We'll handle whatever comes. Promise." But Maeve couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the house settle, wondering what she'd set in motion. Wondering if defying her father had been brave or stupid. Wondering if Noah was right, if they could handle whatever came next. In the morning, she'd find out. The next few days existed in strange tension. Noah went to work as usual, though he drove a bit faster, looked over his shoulder more often. Maeve accompanied him once, watching him transform in the shop, confident, capable, in his element. She liked seeing him that way, liked seeing who he was when he wasn't worried about his daughter or struggling to survive. Isabella started at a new school, closer to the estate, better funded, with smaller class sizes. Noah fought Maeve on the tuition, but she'd already paid it, presenting it as a done deal. He'd looked angry and grateful simultaneously, finally muttering, "We're keeping track, I'm paying you back." "Consider it rent," Maeve had said, though they both knew he wasn't paying rent either. Grant Collins watched it all from his study, making calls, having quiet conversations with people Maeve couldn't identify. She'd catch glimpses of him, on the phone late at night, papers spread across his desk, that calculating expression she'd learned to dread. He was planning something, she just didn't know what. On Thursday, she found out. She'd just picked up Isabella from school, another new routine she'd fallen into easily when her phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, social media mentions, her name trending. With shaking hands, she opened the first article. The headline made her stomach drop. "Billionaire's scarred daughter in secret relationship with struggling mechanic, gold digger or true love." The photo accompanying it was grainy but unmistakable. Maeve and Noah at the park, his hand on her shoulder, both of them smiling. Another showed them entering the Thai restaurant. A third captured them at his apartment building. "What's wrong?" Isabella asked from the back seat. "You look scared." Maeve forced her voice steady. "Nothing, sweetie, just work stuff." But it wasn't nothing. She scrolled through article after article, each more invasive than the last. They dug into Noah's background, the divorce, the financial struggles, the barely solvent shop. They'd found Isabella's school records, published speculation about Noah using his daughter to get close to Maeve. The comments were vicious, calling Noah everything from opportunistic to predatory. And woven through it all was one consistent thread. Sources close to the Collins family expressing concern about Maeve's judgment, her vulnerability, the possibility she was being manipulated. Her father. This had Grant Collins' fingerprints all over it. Maeve's phone rang, Noah's name. She answered, "Are you seeing this?" His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. "Yes. They're at the shop. Photographers, reporters. I had to close early because customers couldn't get through the crowd. and someone called Child Protective Services. Anonymous report claiming Isabella is being used for financial gain. They're sending someone to investigate. Oh my God. Noah, I'm so sorry. This is your father, isn't it? This is what he meant by pressure. I think so. Yes. He leaked our information to the press, put a target on us. On my daughter. Noah's voice cracked. She's 7 years old, Maeve. She doesn't deserve this. I know. I'll fix it. I'll make him stop. You can't fix this. It's out there now, permanent. They have our names, our faces, our lives, and they're twisting everything to make me look like some predator using his kid to seduce a rich girl. That's not true, and everyone who matters knows it. Does your father know it? Because it seems like he's the one spreading the story. Maeve had no answer. She dropped Isabella at the guest house, the girl mercifully unaware of what was happening, and stormed to the main house. She didn't knock on her father's study door, just threw it open. Grant looked up from his computer, unsurprised. I assume you've seen the news. You did this. You called the press, gave them information. I simply provided context to people who were already asking questions. A billionaire's daughter emerging from isolation, spending time with a financially struggling single father. That's news, sweetheart. I didn't create the story, just helped it along. You destroyed his reputation, his business. You sicked CPS on a little girl. I protected you from a man who was clearly using you. He wasn't using me, Maeve was shouting now, all control gone. He was being kind. He was my friend. And you couldn't stand that I found someone who saw me as more than a problem to solve. Grant stood, came around his desk. I see you as my daughter, my responsibility. You see me as damaged goods you need to hide away. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you actually looked at me? At my face? My scars? You can't even make eye contact anymore. Grant flinched, and Maeve knew she'd hit truth. The scars don't matter. They do to you. They've mattered since the day of the fire. I stopped being Maeve and became a problem. Something to protect and hide and manage from a distance. I lost your mother, Grant said, his voice suddenly raw. I couldn't lose you too. When that fire happened, when I saw you in that hospital bed, he broke off, turning away. I couldn't look because if I looked, I'd have to accept how close I came to losing you. It was easier to focus on solutions, doctors, therapy, security. But I needed you, not solutions. You. I know. Grant's shoulders sagged. I know I failed you, but that doesn't mean this man is right for you. He can't protect you, can't provide for you. I don't need him to. I need him to see me, and he does. He and Isabella both do. They make me feel human again. At what cost? Your reputation? Your safety? My reputation was already destroyed 3 years ago when every news outlet in the country ran photos of my burned face. And as for safety, I've been safe for 3 years, safe and miserable and alone. Maybe it's time to be unsafe and happy instead. Grant turned back to her, and for the first time in years he really looked at her. His eyes traveled across her scarred cheek, the distorted features, the evidence of trauma that would never fully heal. Maeve forced herself not to look away. I see you, he said quietly. I always have. And you're still beautiful. Still my daughter. Then act like it. Call off the press. Fix what you broke. I can't unring that bell. The story is out. But you can issue a statement. Say you support my friendship with Noah, that the reports were exaggerated. Use your influence the way you used it to destroy him, only this time to help. Grant studied her face. You care about him. This mechanic. Yes. More than just friends? Maeve hesitated, then spoke the truth she'd been avoiding. Maybe. I don't know. But I want the chance to find out, without you sabotaging it. Her father moved to the window, looking out at the estate grounds. When he spoke, his voice was tired. Your mother would have handled this better. She always knew the right thing to say, how to balance protection and freedom. Mom would have told you to let me live my own life, even if it scared you. It terrifies me. The thought of you being hurt again. I'm already hurt. Have been for 3 years. Noah didn't cause that. He's trying to help heal it. Grant was silent for a long moment, Then, I'll make a statement. Clarify that while I have concerns, any father would, I support your right to choose your own friends. The CPS investigation will disappear. I'll make sure of it. And the press? I can't control them completely, but I'll discourage further coverage. Threaten lawsuits if they harass you. It's the best I can offer. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Maeve felt tears burning. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm not giving my blessing, just stepping back for now. But if he hurts you, if this goes wrong, I know you'll destroy him. Completely. Maeve left the study emotionally exhausted. She walked to the guest house, found Noah pacing the living room while Isabella colored at the kitchen table, headphones on, oblivious. My father's issuing a statement, Maeve said without preamble. Backing off the press, the CPS thing will go away. Noah stopped pacing. Just like that? He's not happy, but he agreed to stop actively sabotaging us. Why? Because I told him he was losing me, that his protection felt like prison, and I think, maybe, he finally heard me. And Noah ran both hands through his hair. This is insane. Your whole life is insane. I know, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this. Stop apologizing. You didn't do this. He did. Noah closed the distance between them. But we need to talk, really talk, about what this is, what we're doing. What do you mean? Your father asked if there was something between us. More than friendship. And I realized I don't know the answer. We've been spending all this time together, and Isabella adores you, and He stopped, struggling with words. I care about you more than I should, more than is probably smart given the situation. Maeve's heart was pounding. I care about you too. But is that enough? We're from completely different worlds. I work 70-hour weeks and barely make ends meet. You live in a mansion with security gates. Your father is right. I can't provide for you the way you're accustomed to. I don't want you to provide for me. I want you to be honest with me. To see me. You already do that. Everything else is just logistics. Logistics that include a billionaire father who wants me gone and a media circus that will follow us everywhere. So we deal with it. Together. Noah looked at her, really looked at her, the way her father finally had. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. People will talk. Your father will make things difficult. And I come with baggage, a daughter, financial stress, an ex-wife who might show up someday. I have baggage too, Maeve reminded him. Scars, trauma, 3 years of isolation that left me barely functional in social situations. A father with control issues. Take your pick. Despite everything, Noah smiled. We're quite a pair. We are. He reached out, cupped her scarred cheek with his calloused hand. The gesture was tender, unafraid, and Maeve leaned into it like a flower toward sunlight. I'm going to kiss you now, Noah said quietly, if that's okay. Maeve nodded, unable to speak. The kiss was gentle, cautious, both of them aware of how fragile this moment was. His lips were warm against hers, his hand steady on her face. It lasted just seconds, but when they pulled apart, Maeve felt fundamentally changed. Someone had kissed her, had wanted to kiss her, had looked at her scars and seen past them to the person beneath. Ew! Isabella's voice broke the moment. She'd taken off her headphones and was watching them with theatrical disgust. You kissed! Gross! Very gross, Noah agreed, but he was grinning. The grossest. Are you guys dating now? Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Noah looked at Maeve, the question real beneath the humor. I guess that depends, Maeve? Yes, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Yes, we are. Isabella squealed, launching herself at both of them, forcing a group hug that was awkward and perfect. This is the best day ever. We're like a family now. Over her head, Noah met Maeve's eyes, and she saw her own fear and hope reflected there. They were crossing a line. There would be consequences. Her father's disapproval, media attention, complications neither of them could fully anticipate. But looking at Noah's smile, at Isabella's joy, at this strange, broken, perfect thing they were building together, Maeve knew it was worth it. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, and for the first time in 3 years, that was enough. The statement Grant Collins issued 2 days later was clinical, carefully worded by lawyers, and just warm enough to deflect criticism without actually expressing approval. He acknowledged that his daughter was an adult capable of making her own choices, that Noah Reyes was a hardworking single father, and that while he had natural paternal concerns, he respected Maeve's autonomy. The press coverage didn't disappear entirely, but it shifted, less predatory, more curious. The photographers who'd camped outside Noah's shop gradually dispersed. The CPS investigation was quietly dropped, the complaint deemed unfounded, but the damage lingered. Noah's business had lost 3 regular customers who didn't want to deal with the drama. Isabella had been asked uncomfortable questions at her new school by kids who'd overheard their parents gossiping, and Maeve discovered that being public about their relationship meant every outing, every touch, every moment was subject to scrutiny and judgment. They tried to live normally anyway. Noah still worked impossible hours at the shop, though he started coming home for dinner more often. Maeve began volunteering at Isabella's school, helping with the after-school reading program, slowly rebuilding the confidence to be around people. Isabella thrived with the extra attention, her drawings now featuring 3 stick figures instead of 2. Her family, she called them, complete with labels in careful 7-year-old handwriting. 3 weeks after Grant's statement, on a Tuesday evening, Maeve was helping Isabella with her homework at the guest house kitchen table when Noah's phone rang. He was at the stove stirring pasta sauce he'd spent the afternoon perfecting, and he glanced at the screen with a frown. "Unknown number," he muttered, but answered anyway. "Hello?" Maeve watched his expression shift, confusion to shock to something that looked like physical pain. He gripped the counter edge, knuckles white. "When?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Where?" A pause. "I understand. No, I won't. Thank you for letting me know." He ended the call and stood frozen, staring at nothing. "Dad?" Isabella said, looking up from her math worksheet. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Just work stuff." But his voice was hollow, and when he moved to turn off the stove, his hands shook. "Isabella," Maeve said gently, "why don't you go pick out a book for reading time? I'll be up in a few minutes." The girl hesitated, looking between the 2 adults, then slowly gathered her papers and headed upstairs. The moment her door closed, Noah's careful composure cracked. "That was a hospital in Seattle," he said quietly. "My ex-wife, Elena. She's been in an accident, critical condition." Maeve's breath caught. "Oh, God. Noah, I'm so sorry." "They only called because I'm still listed as her emergency contact. She never changed it, apparently." He laughed, but it was broken. 2 years. 2 years of nothing. No calls, no visits, no child support. Isabella asks about her sometimes, and I never know what to say. And now, what are you going to do? Noah finally looked at her, his eyes lost. "I don't know. Part of me thinks I should go. She's Isabella's mother. If something happens and I didn't at least try to be there..." He broke off. "But she abandoned us. She chose to leave. Why should I drop everything now?" Maeve moved to him, took his hands. "Because you're a better person than she was. And because Isabella might need closure, whether Elena recovers or not. You're saying I should go to Seattle. I'm saying you should do whatever feels right, and that whatever you choose, I'll support it." Noah pulled Maeve into his arms, holding tight, and she felt him trembling. They stood like that for a long moment, the pasta sauce cooling on the stove, the half-set table forgotten. "I can't take Isabella," Noah said finally. "She doesn't need to see her mother like that. In a hospital. Maybe dying." "Then leave her here, with me. I'll take care of her. For how long? I don't know how long I'll be gone. However long it takes." Maeve pulled back enough to see his face. "She'll be safe, I promise. Your father, we'll deal with it. This is important. Family is important, even complicated family." Noah searched her eyes, and whatever he saw there seemed to convince him. "Okay, I'll leave first thing tomorrow. Drive up, see what's happening, figure it out from there." They told Isabella together after dinner. The girl took it better than Maeve expected, though her face went very still when Noah mentioned her mother. "Is she gonna die?" Isabella asked, her voice small. I don't know, baby. That's why I need to go check on her. Do I have to go? No. You're going to stay here with Maeve. Is that okay? Isabella looked at Maeve, then back to her father. Will you come back? The question broke Maeve's heart. This child who'd been abandoned once, now watching her father leave, even temporarily. The fear in her eyes was raw and real. Of course I'm coming back, Noah said, kneeling so they were eye level. I will always come back to you. You're my whole world, Is. Nothing changes that. Not distance, not your mother, nothing. Understand? Promise? I promise. Cross my heart. He made the gesture, and Isabella did it back, their private ritual. That night, after Isabella was asleep, Noah packed a small bag. Maeve sat on his bed, their first time in his bedroom, and the intimacy of it felt both natural and overwhelming. She watched him move through the space, grabbing clothes and toiletries, his movements mechanical. I'm scared, he admitted, sitting beside her, not of seeing Elena, of what it might stir up. Feelings I thought I'd buried, anger, definitely, but maybe other things too. That's normal. She was your wife. You loved her once. I did, before she became someone I didn't recognize, someone who could walk away from her own daughter without looking back. Noah rubbed his face. What if she asked to see Isabella? What if she survives and decides she wants back in our lives? Then you'll deal with it. Together, you and Isabella. Maybe me too, if you want. I want. Noah took her hand. These past few weeks with you have been the closest thing to happiness I've felt in years. Isabella's thriving. I'm actually sleeping through the night. We're building something real, and I'm terrified this is going to blow it all apart. It won't. We're stronger than one phone call. Are we? We've been together, what, a month? And most of that has been dealing with your father's objections and media circuses. Exactly. If we can survive that, we can survive anything. Noah pulled her close, kissed her temple. Stay with me tonight. Just sleep. I just need to not be alone right now. Okay. They lay together on top of the covers, fully clothed, Maeve's head on Noah's chest, listening to his heartbeat gradually slow to something resembling calm. She'd never spent the night with anyone. The fire had happened before she'd had the chance to navigate dating or intimacy. Being here in Noah's arms felt both frightening and perfectly right. Maeve? Noah's voice was soft in the darkness. Yeah? Thank you for all of this. For taking care of Isabella. For not running when things got complicated. I'm not going anywhere. Even if Elena survives and wants to be part of Isabella's life again? Even then, though fair warning, if she hurts that little girl again, she'll have to deal with me. Noah's chest moved with quiet laughter. Fierce, I like it. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, holding on to each other against whatever was coming. Noah left before dawn. Maeve walked him to his truck, Isabella still sleeping upstairs. The sky was just beginning to lighten, Portland spread below them in the valley, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Drive safe, Maeve said. Text me when you get there. I will. Noah kissed her, longer this time, like he was memorizing the feeling. Take care of my girl. With my life. She watched him drive away, the truck's taillights disappearing down the winding driveway. When she turned back to the guest house, Grant Collins was standing on the main house steps, coffee in hand, watching her. They hadn't spoken much since his statement. He'd kept his distance, observing from afar, making no further moves against Noah. Now, in the early morning quiet, he approached. He's gone to Seattle, Grant said. It wasn't a question. Of course he knew. He probably had people monitoring everything. His ex-wife is in the hospital, critical condition. And he left his daughter with you. Yes, she's staying with me until he gets back. Grant sipped his coffee, considering. That's a lot of responsibility. A 7-year-old child. I can handle it. Can you? You barely leave the estate except to be with them. You haven't worked, haven't pursued any goals beyond this relationship. What happens when he realizes you've built your entire world around him? That's not healthy, Maeve. The criticism stung because it carried a grain of truth. She had built her life around Noah and Isabella. but not out of dependence, out of finally having something worth building toward. I'm volunteering at Isabella's school 3 days a week, Maeve said. I'm taking online classes again. Real ones, not the half-hearted attempts from before. I'm applying to community college for the spring semester. I'm building a life, Dad. It just includes them now. Grant's expression softened slightly. Community college, not the university? Not yet. I need to ease back in, rebuild confidence. Community college is a good start. What will you study? I don't know yet. Maybe education, maybe child development. Maybe I'll hate it and switch to something else. But at least I'm trying. Her father nodded slowly, and Maeve saw something she hadn't expected: pride. Your mother would be pleased. She always said you needed to find your own path, not the one I laid out for you. I miss her, Maeve said quietly, especially now. She'd know what to say about all of this. About Noah and Isabella, about me trying to figure out who I am after the fire. She'd say you're braver than you know, and that scars make you real, not broken. Grant's voice cracked slightly. She said that to me once, about my own scars. The ones no one could see. It was the most vulnerable Maeve had ever heard her father sound. She wanted to press, to ask about his pain, but he cleared his throat and straightened, businessman mask sliding back into place. The child, Isabella. She's welcome in the main house if she needs anything, and if you need help, ask. I may not approve of this situation, but I'm not going to let my granddaughter... He stopped, caught himself. I mean, not going to let a child under my roof go without proper care. He'd almost called Isabella his granddaughter. The slip was revealing, tender, quickly covered, but real. Maeve felt warmth spreading through her chest. Thank you, Dad. Grant nodded curtly and retreated to the main house, leaving Maeve alone in the dawn. She returned to find Isabella awake, sitting on the stairs in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her dragon book. Is Dad gone? She asked. Yes, sweetie, but he'll call later and he'll be back as soon as he can. What if he doesn't come back? What if Mom makes him stay? Maeve sat beside her on the stairs. Your dad loves you more than anything in the world. He'll come back. I promise. You can't promise that. Nobody can. The child's cynicism was heartbreaking. 7 years old and already so aware of how promises could break. Maeve pulled her close. You're right. I can't promise with absolute certainty. But I can tell you that your dad has never once let you down. Not once. And he's not going to start now. What if Mom asks him to come back, to be a family again? Do you want that? Maeve asked carefully. For your parents to get back together? Isabella was quiet for a long moment. I used to. I used to pray for it every night. But then Dad got sadder and sadder, and Mom never called, and I realized maybe it's better this way. At least now Dad smiles sometimes. He smiles a lot, especially around you. And around you. You make him happy too. Isabella looked up at Maeve with those serious dark eyes. If Mom comes back and tries to take him away, will you fight for us? With everything I have. Good. Because you're part of our family now. You can't just leave. They spent the morning together. Breakfast, then Isabella's homework, then a walk around the estate grounds. Maeve showed her the gardens her mother had planted, the greenhouse where exotic orchids grew, the small pond with koi fish that were probably worth more than Noah's truck. Isabella was delighted by all of it, asking endless questions, touching everything with careful curiosity. They were feeding the fish when Grant appeared again, this time with his tablet. Isabella, he said formally, would you like to see some pictures of when Maeve was your age? The girl's face lit up. Yes! They settled on a bench, Isabella between them, as Grant scrolled through digital photos. Maeve hadn't seen many of these, childhood pictures her father had scanned and archived. There she was at 7, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a science fair trophy. At 8, covered in mud after helping her mother plant trees. At 9, serious and focused, reading a book that was definitely too advanced for her age. You look happy, Isabella observed. Before the fire, I mean. I was, Maeve said, most of the time. Do you think you'll be that happy again? Maeve glanced at her father, then back at Isabella. I think I'm getting there, thanks to people like you. Grant cleared his throat. Isabella, have you had lunch? Not yet. The kitchen staff can prepare something. What would you like? Really? Anything? When Grant nodded, she grinned. Grilled cheese with tomato soup. And can they cut the sandwich into triangles? Dad always forgets and does squares. I'll make sure they do triangles. Grant stood, then hesitated. Maeve, you'll bring her to the main house in about 30 minutes? We'll be there. After he left, Isabella turned to Maeve with wide eyes. Your dad is scary, but also kind of nice? That's a good description, actually. Lunch in the main house was surreal. The formal dining room had been set for 3, Grant at the head, Maeve and Isabella on either side. The staff brought out perfect grilled cheese cut into perfect triangles, soup that was clearly homemade and probably cost more per bowl than a restaurant meal. Grant asked Isabella about school, her interests, her favorite subjects. The girl answered enthusiastically, completely unintimidated by the billionaire in the expensive suit. You're good at math? Grant asked when Isabella mentioned it was her best subject. Really good. Dad says I get it from him. He can do engine calculations in his head. Useful skill. Have you thought about what you want to be when you grow up? A scientist, or maybe an engineer, or possibly a veterinarian. I haven't decided yet. You don't have to decide now, but those are ambitious goals. They require strong education. I know. That's why I work really hard in school. Grant nodded approvingly. Maeve was the same way. Top of her class, always reading, always learning. He glanced at his daughter. Still is, I hope. I'm trying, Maeve said, taking it one step at a time. After lunch, Isabella asked to see more of the house. Maeve gave her the tour, the library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, the home gym, the media room with a screen that took up an entire wall. Isabella was appropriately awed, but she kept coming back to one question. Where's your room? Can I see it? Maeve hesitated. She hadn't had anyone in her room since the fire. It was her sanctuary, her safe space. But looking at Isabella's eager face, she couldn't refuse. The room was exactly as she'd left it that morning. Bed made, curtains open, the covered mirrors she'd finally uncovered last week after Noah had gently suggested that hiding from her own reflection wasn't healing. Isabella walked through slowly, taking in everything. It's pretty, she said, but it doesn't look like you. What do you mean? It's too perfect, too clean, like a hotel room. Where's your stuff? Your drawings or photos or collections? Maeve realized the girl was right. This room had no personality, no evidence of who she was, just expensive furniture and neutral colors and nothing that said Maeve lived here. I guess I stopped decorating after the fire. Stopped caring about that stuff. You should care again. Dad says a room should tell your story. Isabella picked up a frame from the dresser, the only photo in the room, Maeve and her mother from years ago. Is this your mom? Yes, she died when I was 12. I'm sorry, that must have been really hard. It was, still is sometimes. Isabella set the frame down carefully. At least you have good memories. I barely remember my mom. Just bits and pieces, her perfume, the way she sang in the car, but it's getting fuzzier. That's normal. You were young when she left. Do you think she ever thinks about me? Like on my birthday or holidays or random Tuesdays? Maeve's heart broke for this child who'd been abandoned, who carried that wound so close. I think she thinks about you all the time. And I think wherever she is, whatever happened, she regrets leaving you. Because you're extraordinary, Isabella. Anyone who walked away from you made the biggest mistake of their life. Isabella threw her arms around Maeve's waist, hugging fiercely. I'm glad Dad found you, even if it was because I got lost in the mall. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Noah called that evening. Isabella talked to him first, telling him about the koi fish and the grilled cheese triangles and how Grandpa Collins, she'd apparently decided that's what she was calling Grant, had shown her baby pictures of Maeve. When she handed the phone over, her expression was carefully neutral. He sounds tired, she whispered. Make sure he's okay. Maeve took the phone to her room for privacy. Hey, how are you? Exhausted, confused. Elena's in a medically induced coma. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. She's got internal bleeding, broken bones, head trauma. They don't know if she'll make it. God, Noah, I'm so sorry. Her boyfriend was with her. He died on impact. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. His voice was hollow. There's no one else here. Her parents died before we met. She was an only child. Her friends have all moved on. It's just me, sitting in a hospital waiting room, being the emergency contact for a woman who erased me from her life. You don't have to stay. I do, though, because if she wakes up, someone should be here. And if she doesn't, he trailed off. Isabella asked about her last month, wanted to know why her mother didn't love her enough to stay. I told her that her mother's leaving had nothing to do with how lovable Isabella was, that sometimes adults make terrible choices and kids get hurt through no fault of their own. But how do I explain this? If Elena dies, how do I tell my daughter her mother is gone forever? The same way you've explained everything else, with honesty and love. And you won't do it alone. I'll be there. You're too good to us, you know that? No. I'm just grateful you let me be part of your lives. They talked for another hour. Noah told her about the hospital, the doctor's updates, the sterile waiting room where he'd been camping out. Maeve told him about Isabella's day, about Grant's surprising warmth, about how she was managing. When they finally hung up, Maeve felt the distance between them like a physical ache. The next 3 days followed a similar pattern. Noah called morning and evening with updates. No change, still critical, still uncertain. Isabella went to school, did homework, played in the garden, slowly relaxed into the routine. Grant appeared at odd moments, bringing Isabella books about science, or sitting with them at dinner, his stern exterior gradually softening around the child's enthusiasm. On the fourth night, Isabella had a nightmare. Maeve woke to the sound of crying and found the girl sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "He's not coming back," Isabella sobbed. "He left like Mom did, and he's not coming back." "That's not true, sweetheart. He's coming back, I promise." "You can't promise." "Nobody can. People leave all the time." Maeve climbed into the bed, pulling Isabella close, letting her cry it out. The child's pain was raw, primal, the wound of abandonment reopened by her father's absence. They sat like that for over an hour, Maeve rocking her gently, whispering reassurances that felt inadequate but were all she had to offer. Finally, Isabella's sobs quieted. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if something happens to Dad? What if there's another accident? What if I lose everyone?" "You won't. And even if something did happen, which it won't, you wouldn't be alone. You'd still have me. Always. Promise?" "I promise. Cross my heart." Maeve made the gesture, and Isabella did it back. "Can I sleep here? With you?" "Of course." They curled up together, Isabella's small body tucked against Maeve's side. As the child's breathing finally evened out into sleep, Maeve stared at the ceiling and sent up her own desperate prayer that Noah would come home soon. This little girl needed her father, and if Maeve was being honest, she needed him too. Noah called at midnight. Maeve answered on the first ring, careful not to wake Isabella. "She woke up," Noah said without preamble. "Elena. She's awake." "That's good, right?" "I don't know. She's confused, in pain, asking for her boyfriend. Had to tell her he died. That was brutal." Noah's voice was ragged. "Then she saw me and just started crying, apologizing over and over, saying she was sorry for leaving, sorry for being a coward, sorry for everything." "What did you say?" "Nothing at first. Then I asked her why she left, why she abandoned Isabella, needed to finally hear it. And? She said she wasn't ready, that motherhood terrified her, that she woke up one day and realized she'd made a mistake, not having Isabella, but thinking she could be the mother Isabella deserved. Said she was drowning, suffocating, losing herself. So she left. Thought we'd be better off without her." Maeve absorbed this. "Do you think that's true?" "Part of me does. She was struggling. I saw it, but didn't know how to help. Postpartum depression, maybe, or just incompatibility with parenting. But the other part of me is furious because you don't just leave. You get help. You fight. You do whatever it takes for your kid. What happens now?" "She wants to see Isabella. Says she knows she doesn't deserve it, but she wants to try to explain. To apologize in person." Noah's voice broke. "I don't know what to do, Maeve. Do I bring Isabella up here? Let her see her mother in a hospital bed? Risk reopening wounds that are barely healed? That's not my decision to make." "But what would you do?" Maeve thought about her own mother, about the years she'd had before cancer took her, about the conversations and moments she treasured, about how different her life would have been without that foundation of love. "I'd ask Isabella," she said finally, "tell her the truth, that her mother is alive, hurt but recovering, and wants to see her. Let Isabella decide if she's ready. She's stronger than you think, than any of us think." "You're right. You're always right." Noah exhaled slowly. "I'm coming home tomorrow. Can you come with me when I tell her? I need you there." "Of course. Whatever you need." They hung up, and Maeve lay in the darkness with Isabella breathing softly beside her. Tomorrow would change everything. Whatever Isabella decided, their small, fragile family would have to adapt, and Maeve could only hope that the foundation they'd built was strong enough to withstand whatever came next. Morning arrived too quickly. Maeve woke to find Isabella already up, standing at the window, watching the driveway. "He'll be here soon," Maeve said. "I know, I can feel it." Isabella turned, and her expression was older than her years. "Something happened, something big, I can tell. Your dad will explain when he gets here." "Is my mom dead?" The direct question caught Maeve off guard. "No, she's not dead." "Then she's alive, and he talked to her." Isabella's voice was eerily calm. "That's why he's coming home, to tell me about her." "How did you—" "I'm not a baby. I knew that's where he went, to see if she was dying." Isabella crossed her arms, defensive. "Is she going to be okay?" "Yes. She woke up. She's going to recover." "Good." But Isabella's expression was conflicted, relief and resentment warring on her face. Noah's truck pulled up 2 hours later. Isabella bolted out the door before Maeve could stop her, throwing herself at her father the moment he emerged. He caught her, held her tight, and Maeve saw his shoulders shaking. Father and daughter, clinging to each other, working through emotions too big for words. Finally, they pulled apart. Noah's eyes found Maeve's over Isabella's head, and she saw exhaustion there, and fear, and gratitude. "Let's go inside," he said. We need to talk. All of us." They settled in the living room, Noah on the couch, Isabella pressed against his side, Maeve in the chair across from them. For a moment, no one spoke. "Your mother is alive," Noah started. "She was in a bad accident, but she's going to be okay." "I know," Isabella said. "Maeve told me." "Right, well, she woke up yesterday. And she wants to see you. She wants to talk to you, to explain why she left, to apologize." Isabella was very still. "Do I have to go?" "No, this is completely your choice. We can say no, and that's okay, or we can go, and you can see her, and that's okay too. Whatever you decide, I support you." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to do whatever feels right to you. This isn't about what I want." Isabella looked at Maeve. "What about you? What do you think I should do?" Maeve chose her words carefully. "I think sometimes hearing the truth, even when it hurts, is better than living with questions. But I also think you don't owe anyone anything. Not your mother, not your father, not me. This is your choice." The girl sat quietly, processing. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but determined. "I want to see her. Not because I forgive her, I don't, but because I want her to see me, to see what she gave up, to know that I'm okay without her." Noah's eyes filled with tears. "Okay, baby. Okay, we'll go this weekend, all three of us, if Maeve's willing to come." "I'll come," Maeve said immediately. "Together," Isabella said firmly. "We do this together, like a family." Noah pulled both of them close, Isabella on one side, Maeve on the other, and for a moment they just held each other. Three broken people who'd somehow found each other, who'd built something real and fragile and worth protecting. Whatever happened in Seattle, whatever Elena said or did, they would face it together. And maybe, just maybe, they'd come out stronger on the other side. The drive to Seattle's took 3 hours, and every mile felt heavier than the last. Noah drove, his hands tight on the wheel, jaw clenched in that way that meant he was fighting to stay composed. Isabella sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, staring out the window at the passing landscape. Maeve rode shotgun, her hand resting on Noah's thigh, a silent reminder that he wasn't alone in this. They'd left early Saturday morning, before the sun had fully risen over Portland. Grant had appeared as they were loading the car, pressing an envelope into Noah's hand. "For expenses," he'd said gruffly. Hotels, meals, whatever you need. Don't argue. Noah had looked like he wanted to argue anyway, but Maeve had touched his arm, and he'd simply nodded. Thank you, sir. Take care of my girls, Grant had said, and the possessive pronoun had included both Maeve and Isabella. Then he'd done something that shocked them all. He'd crouched down to Isabella's level. Your grandfather used to tell me something when I was scared. He'd say, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. You're very courageous, young lady. Isabella had thrown her arms around his neck, and for a moment Grant Collins, billionaire, businessman, man who'd spent 3 years unable to look at his own daughter, had simply held a 7-year-old and let her be scared. Now, halfway to Seattle, Isabella finally spoke. What if she tries to take me away, to keep me with her? Noah's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. That won't happen. She signed away custody. Legally, she has no claim. But what if she fights it? What if she says she's better now and wants me back? Then we fight back, Maeve said, turning to look at Isabella. And we win because you belong with your dad, with us. What if I want to stay with her? Isabella's voice was barely audible. Not because I love her more, but because I want to know what it's like to have a mom. The question hung in the air, painful and honest. Noah pulled off at the next exit, parking in an empty rest stop. He got out, opened the back door, and climbed in beside his daughter. Listen to me, he said, taking her small hands in his. If you want a relationship with your mother, I will support that, even if it hurts me, even if it's complicated, because you deserve to know her if that's what you want. But you need to understand something. She left. She chose to leave. And while she might regret that now, while she might want to explain or apologize, that doesn't erase what happened. You don't owe her forgiveness. You don't owe her anything. But she's my mom. Biology doesn't make you a parent. Love does. Showing up does. Being there for the hard days and the boring days and the scary days. That's what makes a parent. Noah's voice cracked. Your mother gave birth to you, and that matters. But Maeve, he glanced at her, and Maeve felt her heart stop. Maeve has shown up every single day since we met her. She's been there for you without obligation, without being asked, just because she cares. That's what family looks like. Isabella looked at Maeve through the gap between the seats. Are you going to be my mom? Like, officially? Maeve's breath caught. They hadn't talked about this, about the future, about labels, about what they were building beyond the immediate moment. She looked at Noah, saw the question in his eyes too, the vulnerability. I want to be, Maeve said honestly. If that's what you want, if that's what your dad wants, I can't replace your biological mother, but I can love you like you're mine. I already do. Isabella unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed through to the front, somehow contorting her 7-year-old body to hug Maeve over the center console. I want that. I want you to be my mom. Noah reached forward, his hand covering both of theirs. Then that's what we'll work toward. No rush, no pressure, but that's the direction we're headed. The three of us. They sat like that for a long moment, an awkward tangle of bodies and emotions in a parking lot off I-5. When they finally pulled apart and got back on the road, something had shifted. They weren't just three people thrown together by circumstance anymore. They were choosing each other, actively, consciously, deliberately. The hospital was cold and sterile, smelling of disinfectant and despair. Noah checked in at the desk while Maeve stayed with Isabella in the waiting area. The girl was pale, her hands shaking slightly. You don't have to do this, Maeve reminded her. We can turn around right now. No, I need to. I need to see her and know that I'm okay without her, that we're okay. Noah returned and a nurse led them through a maze of corridors to the ICU. Elena was in a private room, propped up in bed, her left arm in a cast, a bandage wrapped around her head. She looked small and broken, nothing like the monster Isabella had probably built up in her mind. When they entered, Elena's eyes went immediately to Isabella. Tears started streaming down her face before she even spoke. Baby, she whispered. My baby, you got so big. Isabella stood frozen in the doorway, pressed against Noah's leg. Maeve stayed slightly behind, giving them space but ready to intervene if needed. Hi, Mom, Isabella said, her voice flat. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Elena was sobbing now,
ugly and real. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know leaving you was the worst thing I've ever done. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you. Then why didn't you call? Isabella's voice was stronger now, anger creeping in. If you thought about me so much, why didn't you ever call? Not on my birthday, not on Christmas, not ever. Because I was a coward. Because I thought you were better off without me. Because Elena's eyes flicked to Noah, then away. Because your father was doing such a good job, and I knew if I came back, I'd just mess everything up again. That's a bullshit excuse, Noah said quietly, and both Maeve and Elena looked at him in surprise. He rarely cursed in front of Isabella. You don't get to paint yourself as noble for abandoning your daughter. If you couldn't handle being a mother, fine. People struggle. But you don't disappear completely. You don't make a child think they weren't worth even a phone call. I know, you're right. I was selfish and scared and wrong. Elena turned back to Isabella. I don't expect you to understand. I just wanted to see you, to tell you that none of it was your fault. You were perfect, are perfect. I was the broken one. Isabella took a step forward, out of Noah's protective shadow. I used to think it was my fault, that if I'd been better, quieter, easier, you would have stayed. No. But Dad got me a therapist, and she helped me understand that adults make their own choices, that you leaving was about you, not me. Isabella's voice was remarkably steady. I'm not going to tell you it's okay. It's not okay. You hurt me really bad. You hurt Dad, and we had to figure out how to be okay without you. I know. But I'm here now because I wanted to see you, to know if you were real or if I'd made up how bad it was in my head. And now I know you're real. You left, and we survived. Isabella straightened her shoulders. We're actually good now, really good. I have friends at school, and Dad's shop is doing okay. And we have Maeve now. She's going to be my mom, the one who stays. Elena's gaze shifted to Maeve for the first time. You're Maeve Collins, Grant Collins' daughter. Yes. And you're with Noah? With them? I am. Elena studied her, the scars, the expensive clothes, the way Maeve stood protectively close to Isabella and Noah. Then they're lucky. Take care of them, please. I will. Isabella took another step forward, close enough now to touch the hospital bed. I hope you get better, I do, but I don't think I want to see you again. Not for a while. Maybe not ever. I need to think about it. I understand, Elena whispered. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Isabella. I love you. I always have. Isabella turned and walked out of the room without looking back. Noah started to follow, then paused. He looked at his ex-wife, this woman he'd once loved, who'd given him his daughter and then shattered both their hearts. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, he said finally. I hope you get help, get healthy, build a life you can live with. But stay away from us. If Isabella wants to reach out someday, that's her choice. But you don't get to disrupt our lives again. We've moved on. I can see that. She's beautiful, Noah. You did an amazing job. We did an amazing job. Me and Maeve. We're a team now. Noah left without waiting for a response. In the hallway, Isabella was sitting on a bench, swinging her legs, looking remarkably calm. Maeve sat beside her, an arm around her shoulders. You okay? Noah asked. Yeah. Actually, I think I am. Isabella looked up at him. She's smaller than I remembered. Sadder. I thought seeing her would make me feel something big, but mostly I just feel nothing. Like she's a stranger who happens to share my DNA. That's okay. Whatever you feel or don't feel is valid. Can we go home now? I miss Grandpa Collins and the koi fish in my own room. Home. She'd called the estate home. Maeve felt tears prick her eyes. Yeah, baby, Noah said, his voice thick. Let's go home. They stopped for lunch on the drive back, a roadside diner with red vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone Honan. Isabella ordered chocolate chip pancakes even though it was noon, and neither Noah nor Maeve had the heart to say no. She ate with enthusiasm, chattering about normal 7-year-old things, school projects and playground politics, and whether they could finally get that dog she'd been promised. "I never promised a dog," Noah protested, but he was smiling. "You implied it very strongly," Isabella countered, "and Maeve mentioned it, so it's basically a promise." "We'll talk about it," Maeve said, and Noah shot her a look that said, "We'll definitely be talking about this later." By the time they reached Portland, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Isabella had fallen asleep in the back seat, her head against the window, the dragon book clutched to her chest like always. Noah drove with one hand, his other intertwined with Maeve's. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for coming, for being there, for all of it." "You don't have to thank me." "I do, though. You didn't sign up for any of this, the ex-wife drama, the complicated kid, the broke mechanic with more problems than solutions. I signed up for you, for Isabella, for this." Maeve squeezed his hand. "All the messy, complicated, beautiful parts." When they pulled through the estate gates, Grant was waiting on the front steps of the guest house. He must have been watching for them. Isabella woke up as Noah parked, and the moment she got out, she ran to Grant. "Grandpa! I saw my mom, and I told her I was okay without her, and it was scary, but I did it, and now can we please feed the koi fish?" Grant looked startled by the enthusiasm, the easy affection, the grandfather title that had somehow stuck. But he nodded seriously. "Of course. Let's go feed the fish. You can tell me all about your day." He offered his hand, and Isabella took it, chattering away as they walked toward the gardens. Noah and Maeve watched them go. "Your father is good with her," Noah observed. "She's good for him, reminds him how to be human." They went inside the guest house, and for the first time in days, the weight of worry lifted. They were home, safe, together. Noah pulled Maeve close, just holding her, breathing her in. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. "Officially, not just helping out or being here during crisis. Actually move in, share this space, this life." "Noah, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a couple months, but it doesn't feel fast. It feels right, like this is where we were always heading." He pulled back to look at her. "I love you, Maeve. I love how you are with Isabella. I love how brave you are, even when you're terrified. I love your scars because they're part of your story, and your story made you who you are. I just love you." Maeve felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. So move in. Be with us. Officially." "Yes. Okay. Yes." Noah kissed her then, deep and real and full of promise. When they pulled apart, they were both grinning like idiots. "We should probably tell Isabella," Maeve said. "She already knows. Kid's been planning where your stuff should go for weeks." They spent the evening as a family, Noah cooking dinner while Maeve helped Isabella with homework, all three of them talking over each other, laughing at nothing, existing in that perfect domestic bubble. After dinner, they watched a movie, Isabella sprawled across both their laps, fighting sleep because she didn't want the day to end. "Bedtime is," Noah said when the credits rolled. "But I'm not tired," she protested through a yawn. "Nice try, come on." They went through the bedtime routine together, teeth brushing, pajamas, the dragon book for the 1,000th time. When Isabella was finally tucked in, she looked up at them both. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Very," Maeve said. "Good. Me too." Isabella's eyes were already closing. "Love you, Dad. Love you, Maeve." "Love you too, baby," Noah whispered. "Love you, Isabella," Maeve added. They left her door cracked, the hallway light spilling in how she liked it. In the living room, they collapsed onto the couch, exhausted and content. "We should talk," Noah said, "about the future, about making this official." "What do you mean?" Noah shifted to face her, suddenly nervous. "I mean, I know it's too soon for marriage. We've got time for that. But I want you to know this isn't temporary for me. You're not temporary. I'm in this for the long haul." "Me too." "Good, because Isabella's already planning the wedding. She's got very specific opinions about flowers, apparently." Maeve laughed. "Of course she does." They sat in comfortable silence, Maeve's head on Noah's shoulder, his arm around her.
Outside, Portland sparkled below them, the city lights reflecting off the river, the mountains' dark silhouettes against the sky. I never thought I'd have this, Maeve said quietly. After the fire, I accepted that my life was over, that I'd spend forever hidden away, alone, just existing. But you changed that. You and Isabella. You made me believe I could have a real life again. You gave us a real life too. Before you, it was just survival. Now it's actually living. The next few months passed in a blur of ordinary happiness. Maeve officially moved into the guest house, her things mixing with Noah's and Isabella's until the space felt like it belonged to all of them. She enrolled in community college, taking classes in early childhood education, discovering a passion for working with kids who'd experienced trauma. Noah's shop picked up more business, stabilized by positive word of mouth, and one very favorable review from a tech columnist who turned out to be Grant's friend. Isabella thrived, making honor roll and joining the school's science club. She stopped having nightmares about abandonment, started calling Maeve Mom more often than not, usually when asking for something Noah had already said no to. They were a family in every way that mattered. Grant surprised them all by becoming increasingly involved. He attended Isabella's science fair, standing awkwardly among the other parents but clapping louder than anyone when she won second place. He started having dinner at the guest house once a week, his stiff formality gradually melting into something approaching warmth. He and Noah developed a wary respect, bonding over their shared desire to protect and provide for the females in their lives. One evening in late spring, nearly a year after that first meeting in the cafe, Maeve found herself alone in the main house with her father. Isabella was at a sleepover, Noah working late on a rush job. Grant was in his study, and Maeve knocked on the open door. "Can we talk?" she asked. Grant looked up, immediately concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For backing off, for giving Noah a chance, for being a grandfather to Isabella, for all of it." Maeve sat in the chair across from his desk, the same chair where she'd sat countless times as a child, being lectured or praised or simply seen. "I know it wasn't easy, accepting this situation." "It wasn't," Grant admitted. "But you were right. I was trying to protect you by keeping you isolated, and all I did was make you miserable. You're happier now than you've been since before the fire. I can't argue with that." "I am happy, terrifyingly so." "Why terrifyingly?" "Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for it to fall apart. I'm not used to things working out." Grant set down his pen, giving her his full attention. "Your mother used to say that happiness isn't something you wait for permission to feel. It's something you grab hold of and protect fiercely. She'd want you to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just enjoy what you've built." "I miss her. Every day. But she'd be so proud of you, of the woman you've become, the family you've created, the way you've rebuilt your life from the ashes. Literally." His voice softened. "I'm proud of you too." Maeve felt tears burning. Her father so rarely expressed emotion, and hearing it now felt like balm on wounds she'd carried for years. "There's something I want to ask you," she said. "Noah and I have been talking about making things official. Not marriage yet, but he wants to adopt Isabella, and we want your blessing." "You don't need my blessing. I know, but I'd like it anyway." Grant was quiet for a moment. "He's a good man. I didn't want to see it at first, saw only the financial disparity, the potential for exploitation. But he loves you, really loves you, and Isabella adores you both. That's all any father could want for his daughter." "So you approve?" "I do, with one condition." Maeve braced herself. "What condition?" "That you let me set up a trust for Isabella. For college, for her future, whatever she needs. Not because Noah can't provide, he's doing an admirable job, but because she's my granddaughter now, whether that's legal or not, and I want to help." "Dad, no arguments. Your mother left money for your children. Biological or chosen, Isabella counts. Let me do this." Maeve nodded, too emotional to speak. Grant came around the desk, pulled her into a hug, the first real hug they'd shared since before the fire. Maeve held on to her father and cried, releasing years of pain and distance and misunderstanding. "I'm sorry," Grant whispered, "for pulling away after the fire, for not being there the way you needed." You're here now. That's what matters. That night, when Noah got home, Maeve told him about the conversation. They sat in their room, shared and real, and planned for the future. Isabella's birthday is in 2 months, Noah said. What if we do it then? Make it official. Give her the best 8th birthday present ever. You think she'd like that? Are you kidding? She's been practicing writing Isabella Grace Reyes Collins in her notebooks. Maeve laughed. She has not. She absolutely has. I found 3 pages of it yesterday. They spent weeks planning, keeping it secret, working with lawyers to finalize the paperwork. On Isabella's 8th birthday, they threw a party at the estate. Her school friends, their small circle of family, even some of Noah's regular customers from the shop. Grant had insisted on hiring caterers and a magician, and the result was controlled chaos in the best possible way. When the cake was eaten and the presents opened, Noah asked everyone to gather in the living room. Isabella, sugar high and giddy, bounced on the couch between Noah and Maeve. We have one more present, Noah said. The biggest one. Bigger than the telescope? Isabella asked, eyes wide. Bigger than the telescope. Noah pulled out an envelope, hands shaking slightly. When you were born, your mom and I gave you the name Isabella Grace Reyes. It's a beautiful name. But names can grow, just like people can grow, and families can grow too. He opened the envelope, pulled out the official documents. If you want, and only if you want, we'd like to add to your name. Make it Isabella Grace Reyes Collins. Make you officially Maeve's daughter, too. Make us officially a family. Isabella stared at the papers, her mouth open. Around them, the room had gone silent. Even the 8-year-old sensed something important was happening. You mean adoption? Isabella whispered. Yes, Maeve said. If you want. You don't have to answer now. Yes! Isabella launched herself at Maeve, nearly knocking her off the couch. Yes, 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 I want to be yours. I want to be a family. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Grant wiped his eyes discreetly. Several of Isabella's friends demanded to know if this meant they could come to the mansion more often. And Noah pulled both his girls close, overwhelmed by the improbability and perfection of this moment. Later, after the party wound down and Isabella was showing her new name to anyone who'd listen, Maeve found herself standing in the garden with her father. The late afternoon sun cast everything in gold, the roses her mother had planted years ago blooming in riotous color. She would have loved this, Grant said. Your mother would have loved Noah and Isabella, would have loved seeing you this happy. I wish she could have met them. Me too. But I think she knew, somehow, that you'd find your way to this. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching through the window as Noah and Isabella danced to music only they could hear, as the life Maeve had built continued its beautiful, chaotic unfolding. 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Noah took Maeve hiking to a spot outside the city he'd discovered years ago. It was beautiful, a rocky outcrop overlooking the Columbia River Gorge, autumn colors painting the landscape in flame. They sat on the rocks, sharing water and granola bars, talking about nothing and everything. I've been thinking, Noah said casually, too casually. About how your last name is Collins and mine is Reyes, and Isabella has both now, but you and I don't officially share anything. Maeve's heart started pounding. Noah, I know we said we'd wait, but I don't want to wait anymore. He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. This isn't fancy. It's not some huge diamond from a celebrity jeweler. It's just a simple silver ring with a sapphire, because you told me once that was your mother's birthstone. Noah, I'm not proposing. Not yet, because I want to do that right, with Isabella there, probably with your father hovering nervously in the background. He opened the box. But this is a promise. That I'm going to propose. That I want to marry you. That I want to spend the rest of my life building this beautiful, messy, impossible thing we've created. Maeve took the ring with shaking hands. It was perfect. Not too big, not flashy, just beautiful. Like everything about Noah, it was honest and real. Help me put it on? She asked. Noah slid the ring onto her right hand, not the left, because this was a promise, not yet the official question. I love you, Maeve Collins. Scars and strength and everything in between. I love you too, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. They sat on that rock as the sun began to set. The
The gorge spread below them like a promise. Maeve thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, terrified, isolated, convinced her life was over. And she thought about who she was now, mother, girlfriend, student, person, whole despite the scars, happy despite the trauma, living instead of just surviving. The actual proposal came 2 months later on Christmas Eve. The entire family was gathered. Grant, Noah, Maeve, Isabella, even some of Noah's cousins who'd driven up from California. They'd just finished dinner when Noah tapped his glass, asking for everyone's attention. "So," he said, clearly nervous, "I have something to ask. With all of you as witnesses." Isabella was bouncing in her seat, obviously in on the secret. Grant looked suspiciously emotional. Noah took Maeve's hand, pulled her to her feet. "A year and a half ago, I walked across a cafe to help a scared woman who needed someone to see her, not just her scars. I had no idea that woman would change my life, would become my best friend, my partner, my daughter's mother in every way that matters." He dropped to one knee and Maeve's vision blurred with tears. "Would become the love of my life. Maeve Collins, will you marry me?" The ring was different this time, the one from the promise ring, but reset, enhanced, made official. Maeve looked at it, at Noah's hopeful face, at Isabella's excited expression, at her father's soft smile. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, absolutely yes." Noah stood, swept her into his arms, kissed her while their family cheered, and Isabella shouted, "I told you she'd say yes!"
Matmem asumenna satirnis. Grant popped champagne, the expensive kind he'd been saving, and they toasted to the future, to family, to second chances and hard-won happiness. The wedding was small, held the following June in the estate gardens. Isabella was the maid of honor, taking her duties very seriously, managing Maeve's train with the concentration of a surgeon. Grant walked Maeve down the aisle, his arms steady, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Noah stood at the altar in a suit that probably cost a month's shop earnings, looking at Maeve like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. They wrote their own vows. Noah promised to always see her, to never let her hide, to love every scar and story that made her who she was. Maeve promised to always show up, to be the mother Isabella deserved, to build a life with Noah that honored both their pasts while embracing their future. When they kissed, sealing the marriage, Isabella cheered louder than anyone. "That's my mom and dad," she announced to everyone within earshot, as if they might have forgotten. The reception stretched into evening, lights strung through the trees, music floating on the warm air. Maeve danced with her father, with her new husband, with her daughter. She watched Noah laughing with his cousin, watched Isabella teaching Grant how to do some complicated hand clap game, watched the family they'd built from broken pieces come together in joy. Later, much later, when the party had wound down and Isabella had finally fallen asleep in her room at the main house, Grant insisting she stay with him so the newlyweds could have privacy, Noah and Maeve stood on the guest house porch. Their house now. Their home. "Happy?" Noah asked, pulling her close. "Terrifyingly so," Maeve admitted. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it'll all be a dream." "Not a dream, just life. Our life." Noah turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her scarred cheek. "You know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "Courage, strength, beauty. Everything I need, everything Isabella needs, everything we didn't even know we were looking for." Maeve kissed him, long and slow and full of promise. Around them, Portland stretched out in a carpet of lights, the city where they'd found each other, where they'd built this impossible family, where they'd learned that broken things could heal and scarred people could still be whole. The years that followed were full and rich. Isabella grew, thrived, eventually went to college on the scholarship Grant had set up, studying engineering like she'd always dreamed. Noah's shop expanded, became successful enough to hire 2 mechanics and still take Sundays off. Maeve finished her degree, started working with a nonprofit that helped burn victims and their families, using her own story to offer hope to others. They had hard days, of course. Days when the past crept back in. Days when Isabella struggled with feeling abandoned by her biological mother, despite understanding intellectually why it had happened. Days when Maeve looked in the mirror and still saw the scars first, the person second. Days when Noah worked too hard, forgot to rest, had to be reminded that he didn't have to do everything alone anymore. But they had more good days than bad. Beach vacations where Isabella collected shells and Maeve wore a swimsuit without a cover-up, and Noah forgot to check his phone. Holiday dinners where Grant told terrible dad jokes, and Isabella groaned and Maeve laughed until she cried. Ordinary afternoons where they simply existed together, reading or cooking or doing nothing at all. 5 years after the wedding, on the anniversary of that first day in the cafe, Noah took Maeve back to Riverside Cafe. The same table by the window, the same morning light streaming through. They ordered the same drinks, chamomile tea and black coffee. 5 years, Noah said, shaking his head. Feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time. Best decision I ever made, Maeve said, walking through that door. Best decision I ever made was crossing the room to meet you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Portland wake up around them. People came and went, some staring at Maeve's scars, most not. She didn't hide anymore. Didn't need to. The scars were part of her story, but they weren't the whole story. Her phone buzzed. A text from Isabella, now 13 and every bit as chatty via message as she was in person. Dad remembered to take you to the cafe, right? I reminded him twice. Also, can we get tacos for dinner? And can I go to Sarah's house after school? Her mom said it's okay. Love you both. Please say yes to the tacos. Maeve showed Noah, and they both laughed. Their daughter demanding and loving in equal measure the heart of their family. We should head back, Noah said. Grant's probably wondering where we disappeared to. Let him wonder. We have a few more minutes. So they sat, just being, in the place where it all started, where a terrified woman and a kind man and a curious child had found each other against all odds, where broken pieces had come together to form something whole and beautiful and real. The cafe door opened and a young woman entered, early 20s, scarred from what looked like a recent burn, wearing a scarf wrapped tight around her neck. She hesitated in the doorway, and Maeve saw it immediately, the fear, the shame, the bone-deep certainty that she didn't belong. Maeve caught Noah's eye. He nodded, understanding without words what she was about to do. Maeve stood, walked across the cafe, straight to the young woman. She gently unwound her own hair from where it had been tucked, revealing her scars fully. The woman's eyes widened. Hi, Maeve said softly. I'm Maeve. This is my favorite table, but the light's better over here. Would you like to join us? The woman stared, clearly shocked that someone was speaking to her, even more shocked that it was someone who understood. I don't want to intrude. You're not, please. Maeve offered her hand, and just like Noah had done 5 years ago, the woman looked at that hand, hesitated, then slowly reached out and took it. Maeve led her to the table, introduced her to Noah, ordered her tea. They talked, about nothing at first, then gradually about everything. About scars and survival and the long road to accepting yourself. About the possibility of hope, even when everything feels hopeless. The woman's name was Sasha. She'd been burned in a house fire 6 months ago. She was terrified, isolated, convinced her life was over. Maeve told her it wasn't, told her about support groups and therapy and the nonprofit where she worked, gave her a business card, a phone number, a lifeline. When Sasha finally left an hour later, she was smiling. Just a little, tentative and uncertain, but real. She turned at the door, looked back at Maeve. Thank you, she mouthed. Maeve nodded. Come back any time. After she left, Noah took Maeve's hand across the table. You're going to help her, the way we helped you. The way you helped me, Maeve corrected. I'm just passing it forward. No, you're doing more than that. You're showing her it's possible to survive, to thrive, to build a life worth living even after trauma. That's everything. They left the cafe hand in hand, walking out into the Portland morning. The city stretched around them, full of people with their own scars and stories, all trying to find their way. Somewhere in the hills above, Isabella was probably negotiating with Grant about something. At the shop, Noah's mechanics were opening up for the day. At the nonprofit office, people who'd survived what should have killed them were learning to live again. And Maeve Collins Reyes, scarred and strong, broken and whole, forever changed but no longer defined by her trauma, walked beside the man who'd crossed a room to see her, toward the life they'd built together, toward the family that chose each other every single day. The scars were still there, would always be there. But they were just part of the story now. Not the ending, never the ending. Just one chapter in a life full of chapters still being written. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything.